Order at 7:11. All right. All right. We'll call in. I'll knock it again. There we go. Good evening, everyone. I appreciate everyone taking the time calling this meeting to order at 7:11 on September 29th, 2025. This is our work session for the Town Riverdale Park Mayor and Council session. Appreciate everyone growing with us. This is our first time back in this space in almost 5 years, 4 or 5 years. So just, quick congratulations for all the hands that went into putting this together, town staff making this a reality, and all the people who've actually did the work on this, and our AV staff in the back trying to make this a reality. So definitely appreciate all the efforts that went into this. I believe we have a quorum. Looking on the agenda, I see in person, we have Councilmember Smith, Councilmember Warsnop, and then we have Councilmember Lingua and Councilmember Kalun online. I know Councilmember Foe is overseas and will not be able to join us, and Councilmember Ramos will be joining us shortly today. So we'll have almost a full quorum over, and I actually like the fact that it's half of us will be online and half of us will be in person, and so it's good live training in terms of seeing how this will look toward in the future. All right, preamble done. So it is a work session, and so some of it is a little less formal, but we still try to use the sort of rules of procedure and decorum. And one of the things that we do first is the approval of the agenda. And so we have agendas printed if you are joining us in person on the chair in front of you if you want to grab one. And there's also one shown in front. So first, are there any stated conflicts of interest for any items on the agenda from anyone in the council?
Have none.
No's in the room.
Yeah.
I have none.
Okay, thank you. Any amendments to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Smith.
in the interest of folks that I think are here this evening, residents interested in the item on number 1 under unfinished business, Town of Riverdale Park support for immigrant community. I'd ask the council if we can move that item up to,
Actually, after public comments.
I'm sorry,
After public comments.
after public comments or after item 1 on work session. I'm fine either way. You let me know.
We'll do it after, so we keep all the work session discussion items
Okay.
together.
So yeah, I would ask that we move it to after public comments then.
Okay. Is there agreement with that?
Seconded.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Yeah, I think we need a second, but okay. So we will, for those following us online, the unfinished business, the Town of Riverdale Park support for immigrant community, we'll move that up to after public comments, and then we will continue with the rest of the agenda as reported or presented. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No problem. First up, we have then a presentation from Pacer AI. I'm assuming they're online. Okay.
I'm online. Hello.
Correct.
Hello, how are you doing?
Great. Am I okay to share my screen in this meeting?
I'll share the presentation you sent over.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Ryan.
Absolutely. One moment, please. So I'll just do a little preamble while that's coming up. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I had spoken with Haley from Placer AI about how our last meeting went and how I did my best to explain Placer AI, but I thought that there could be a better explanation, certainly from somebody a little bit more familiar with the platform. And Haley was kind enough to offer to come to this meeting and share some more information about Placer AI and help to answer some questions the Mayor and Council may have.
Thank you, Director.
The screen is dark.
It's almost ready. Thank you. All right.
Thank you for sharing. And if it's all right with you, I'll just ask you to hit next on the slides for me.
Absolutely.
So we can go to the next one. It's great to be here. Like Ryan said, conversations began back in March of this year. We are eager to see you guys become customers and start using this data like other municipalities throughout Maryland. I work on our sales team here, so I put together a presentation on how you might use this data for revitalizing your town center, and then also further explaining how Placer works. So please interrupt me at any time with questions. But as an overview to Placer, we are a data company that's providing you with location data from cell phones. So specifically the cell phone apps that are monitoring locations of different devices. And we are doing this irregardless of if your community is a customer or not. We are collecting data across the entire US. And what this means is that there's no personal identifiable information being collected. It's simply just number of devices that visit a specific place. So we're observing those locations, seeing where they go throughout town center, maybe they're at a park, but being able to analyze those locations and then tell you with some critical insights, who are the demographics of this person, where are they traveling from, where else have they been. There's dozens of different apps that we partner with. And then Ryan, if you wouldn't mind skipping to the next slide. These are the core insights. So the panel of phones that we're using represent about 25 million Americans. So it's roughly 8% of the US. We are covering data for the past 8 years. And the types of phones, we always get this question. It's roughly slightly more iPhones and then 45% Android phones that are running these apps. We back tested this data against credit card transactions or against physical store counters, like who stands in the front of a Best Buy and tells you how many people are present. But we are really ensuring privacy and accuracy. Those are our two core values at this company, to ensure that you can use this data, share it with your constituents, and put it into projects or reports like Town Center. If you can skip to the next one. So this is just showing coverage of the types of phones and apps that we partner with. So the US map there represents where the phones are coming from, where we're running background location. And then the pie chart represents the types of apps that we partner with. And if you can skip to the next slide. I was asked, does our size community need this kind of data? And I shared with Ryan in our conversations, it's about 65% of Placer customers that have a population of under 10,000. And the reason for that is they are often underrepresented in census data. So we're unique in that sense that we're constantly observing the phone's location as fresh as the last 4 days. So that's the reason why places like Chestertown and Town of St. Michael's signed up with Placer. And then those other two I mentioned in PA are similar in size. A couple, Mountjoy is even smaller actually. But I'm happy to give you more kind of towns or cities, municipalities that are using this data. These four just were happy to share their logos with you. And as we think about how Placer is going to support you, I put together a few slides on the town center redesign. So as you see here, we're pulling population metrics, which means we can tell you with the visitation of cell phone data, whether a visitor is a resident, they're an out-of-market visitor, which means they just don't live or work within the town, but maybe they're coming in for tourism or they're just visiting for the day. We can also parse out the employees. So we're looking at who's coming for certain days and shifts, and then telling you more of the daytime population. So this metric panel is for the past year, and it represents the entire town. And we can also show you the same type of data specific to town center. And then this is a preview into some of the demographics you'll have access to. And then if you can go on, Ryan, to the next one. We're going to show you where people are coming from. So the cell phones being able to demonstrate a large number of visitors coming in from Hyattsville. As you consider the town center redevelopment and looking at what they're working on, you can actually see they make up a large percentage, even larger than Riverdale residents. And if we go to the next slide. I just wanted to capture this because there's so many events happening in Riverdale Park, but Placer's also going to be able to show you where people tend to congregate. So aside from Town Center, this is a map showing you all the events that take place. So we're going to be able to highlight these events or help your marketing team in demonstrating how many people showed up after your marketing for them. And I think that's the end of my presentation. If folks have questions, I'd love to address those.
Thank you so much. Any council member questions? I guess you can raise your hand if you're online and I'll see it. And then obviously if you're in person, you can look at me until I acknowledge your presence. Any council member questions at all?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering, I think there was a slide back. I can't remember the exact language, but what you benchmarked the accuracy of the data against. I was wondering if you could say more about that, please.
Yes, we have benchmarked the data against the ones that I mentioned were credit card transactions. So how we've done that is large businesses like Best Buy use our data. So they've looked at the number of ticket sales or receipt sales from a day within a single store and compared that to what Placer said was the number of customers that visited that day. And it correlated by about 95%. We've done the similar with the sales of alcoholic beverages in states like Utah that are tracking that. And then for any customer that does have event ticket sales data where they can say, we know 3,000 people were at this event, we've also done thousands of back tests to confirm the accuracy of the data. So we're able to present an accuracy range of 95 to 98% for any of the data in our platform.
That's 95 to 96% against benchmark, or?
Yes, against the selected benchmark.
Okay. So I asked because I do some of my day job purchasing of data and advertising and whatnot, and sort of the people I know who are most experienced in that realm. And I know this is a little bit different than the advertising data. So what I'm getting at is how much different is that? Because the folks that I trust on this kind of stuff tell me that what that was. Yeah, that the overwhelming majority of data sales are at worst fraudulent, at best highly embellished. So I'm curious where we get the confidence from that this is what we say it is. I also have issues with the privacy. Frankly, your presentation makes me want to never turn my phone on again. I think, there are any number of platforms that claim that they're secure and maintain data privacy and all that. And then a couple months later, there's a story about the leak of 50 million people's data on the dark web. I think I probably have 5 or 10 free subscriptions to one of the credit monitoring services that I've gotten from people that promised me they were keeping my data secure. So I'm curious why we are to be trusting Placer AI any more than we trust any of those other folks.
I greatly appreciate those two concerns. I'll address the first one about the accuracy as it relates to advertising. That's actually why we're not in the business of producing numbers for advertisers. So the type of accuracy that we are claiming is showing a direct correlation with the number of cell phones compared to things like credit cards or ground truth data sources like ticket counters or head counts. So those are much easier for us to claim accuracy against versus things like advertising, which we agree can be largely embellished. We're not in that business and we don't ever plan to be. And then to the second point you made, completely understand your point about data trust. And what I would say is that with majority of our customers, they all have that concern. And I do join council meetings quite often. And what does ease concerns is that this data has no tie to personal identifiable information, which you'll see data laws come out often about from Google and Apple about sharing of this critical data. So the only kind of data leak that could ever occur would be one of these apps releases IP numbers, which cannot be attached to a single person's identity. So you should have no concerns about your personal identifiable information being shared with an app, even if they're in our panel we have no idea as to who the phones belong to. It's simply just IP addresses and the longitude and latitude of where that phone's movement has occurred. But do you have
Thank you for that. I know IP address, that can at least be traced back to a server, if not a device. And again, I've done a lot of targeting of these things before. I don't need your personal identification to find you. 6 or 7 data points, I can, within 10 people, target your phone directly. Mr. Mayor, I think it would be we would be poor stewards of the privacy of our community if we were to move forward with this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Councilmember Worsnop.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for this presentation. I share a number of the same misgivings that my colleague just described, so I'm not going to re-litigate those. I agree with him. I do want to ask 2 things. First is about the utility of the data itself and the benchmarking. I would appreciate being pointed to some independent analyses of the accuracy of the data that is being collected. And then second, you noted that a number of municipalities rely on Placer.ai, and including similar size municipalities to Riverdale Park. And I'm just wondering if you can describe, some concrete examples of the value added of using Placer.ai for these municipalities, not just the fact that they are using the service. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I would say the town center example is most common. So if you're going to undergo revitalization efforts, you probably want to plan for the serviceable group that's going to that area. So being able to understand why visitors come, where they're coming from, how long they stay, where else they go, what businesses they visit is crucial information for not only planning efforts, but also if you plan to apply for any grants. So I can share, it's not in your region, but Grand Forks, North Dakota is a population of about 4,000 people. They won a $100,000 grant for securing data that ties into the demographics within our platform. So they needed to be able to show that underrepresented communities coming from minorities or household income under 30,000 were in fact going to their town center. And revitalizing it had to have a focus to that specific group. So they were able to win the grant funding by applying Placer's data in the application. So that's often how customers see a return on investment, would be through the use of a grant. In the case that you just wanted to be able to attract a new business to your town center, we've done enough work here within commercial real estate to know, for brokers to know that we are a valuable data source that's highly accurate. So businesses are very familiar with us when it comes to retaining a new tenant lease or filling a new vacancy. Municipalities that have Placer data typically bring in new tenants much quicker because we're the selected data provider for CRE firms, commercial real estate firms. I hope I addressed that okay. If people had questions, feel free to hop in. Otherwise, I can address some of the personal data collection concerns. So Placer is a 700 employee company. We aren't some small data collection type of company. We're very large in scale. And the reason why we are protected against things like communities that are concerned about data sharing is because we protect sensitive locations. So we exclude locations like places of worship, pre-K through high school, rehabilitation centers, women's health facilities, military facilities. We are really only observing location data for the public good. So what I mean by that is these locations are already going to be observed whether Riverdale Park decides to purchase the data or not. It's already being collected. And the consumers that use these apps have agreed to share the data with the particular apps. So we trust all of the data partners because of the way that the apps are surfacing the mobile location agreement to the app user, that they are responsible and confirm that the app users are over the age of 18. But I completely understand the concern, and if I can address it any more specifically, please let me know.
Thank you. I appreciate your answers. I would certainly encourage us as a town to explore other ways to help to collect the information that we need to revitalize town center and other areas. I also just think it's important to note that, yes, the data is already being collected, and I understand that, but it is then an additional step for the town to decide to spend its resources on that data. I see those as distinct. So thank you.
We'll go to Councilmember Lingua. Your hands raised.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pam, I was wondering if you could delve a little bit more into the example you gave. Was it Grand Forks, North Dakota?
That's right, yes.
Okay, I mean, more of the case, is this something that when they came on and used this, was this service used for a finite amount of time that they were looking to look at a given period in order for this grant application to demonstrate, observation over a given amount of time? This is what they saw in terms of usage. Was it like that, or was it more of an ongoing use of the service, or is like a continuous use of the service? So if you could explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, those are all great questions. So the group that was looking to answer questions as it relates to data was a downtown development association within
Right.
So they had to answer the question of how would $100,000 in grant funding be supported, and how would that impact the town square? So they needed to be able to apply for things like fresh paint, lighting, seating, musical instruments, workout equipment, you name it. And they needed to first be able to understand the requirements for a type of grant to be applicable. And they didn't have any means for that. They had tried community surveys, and they had done things like town halls and community impact types of surveys. And what they found was they were so underrepresented that they threw out that data, and they relied on a provider like us, which had a larger presence in being able to get them the answers they were looking for. So they identified that young urban singles and small town low income folks were who was mostly going to their town center, and they were able to label that inside of their grant application. They were also able to use, I don't know if everyone's familiar with SNAP, but Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So they showed the number of households that fall within SNAP range. They collected that data from Placer. And I should mention, all of the data we use is already on the internet. So if you subscribe to any of these data sets already, this is already publicly available information. The only thing that Placer's doing that's unique is using the cell phone data to guarantee the accuracy of where the data is coming from for a specific location like a downtown. But all of this data exists through census publicly. And then I should also mention the last piece was identifying vehicle traffic. So they didn't have things like traffic cameras. And so with the use of our data, they were able to observe where people go and what peak times of day people were traveling through the town, optimize things like what streets they should close, right turn lanes. But being able to present that data inside of the grant application is what helped them win. And in the customer's words, they said, unless we had someone to sit outside 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the last 5 years, asking every person who they are, where they live, and how much they make, there's just no way we could ever understand how our visitors tell us who they are through Placer. So being awarded a $100,000 grant has totally changed the scope of what we'll be doing this year.
Wow.
And I just happen to have that written down, so I'm glad I could answer it.
So essentially, it's Grand Forks' use of the service is continuous use, correct?
Yes, it's an annual subscription. They saw enough value after winning that grant that they continue to be a customer.
Okay. Okay. Wow, there's parts of it that sound really attractive, yet at the same time, I think a number of us are still trying to get a bead on really how this works through the phone. You're saying you're collecting phone data, And I would agree with, both my colleagues here in terms of that. If you're able to see a pattern within a given phone's data, you can pretty much figure out who that person is. And that then allows you to go on to find other things. And that's kind of what's a concern right here for a number of us. And please, my colleagues, if I'm not getting this right, do speak up. And I think if we're having these concerns, we also need to kind of think about for residents in town about this, about bringing on being that we're a public entity, governing body, about collection of such information. Granted, it's through your company, but we're ultimately responsible should anything happen. Yeah, at least that's my thinking on it.
I understand. We work with 4,800 municipalities nationwide, and I can give you or Ryan contact information for some of the folks that had the similar concerns. I wouldn't trust a salesperson either. If you want to call one of our customers directly, I can happily give references of folks who had the same concerns, pass it through their counsel, and are now happy customers.
Ma'am, it's not about you. It's just really trying to get a full grip and understanding. Because we're not behind the curtain here, so to speak. Seeing how this information comes in, is collected, is secured, is stored. Because I'm not an IT tech. I'm not. Probably the closest person we have to that would be, our mayor. In terms of his background and his occupation. And I think we're just all trying to understand how this information is secure in your possession. And how we can be sure that residents' information it would be secure as well, because we would be trusting you to maintain the security. And I know recently I've received emails from 2 different companies who had my information and where there was where they had a data breach. One of them being Care First. So this is something of a concern.
I understand. And as it's been said, you would be subscribing to a database that already exists. There would be no action by the town for this data to be taken from its citizens. So all the data is being stored on AWS, Amazon Web Services. When it comes to things like security, I can share we have like a ISO 27000 certified security system. We have not had any data breaches ever. But as it relates to how you are using the data, we do have a data trust link that links out for communities to be able to share why they trust this data with their constituents. And many of the municipalities put that on their website for communities to be able to ask questions because it relieves concerns about, can they know it's me? And the fact is, no, we can never find out who an individual is. The closest we can get is how many individuals come from a designated census block group, but there could never be any tie to whose phone it belongs to or who went where.
Thank you. We'll take a comment from our town manager in room.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Very briefly, we invited Placer here after the conversation where staff had presented a few months ago. And it's obvious that there's still concerns related to privacy in that. So, Mr. Mayor, I think we could probably, if it's all right with the council, end this presentation, and staff will look at other options and come back to the council with other options for how those goals could be met.
Quick question. I agree. Okay, close this out.
Thank you. Just one quick follow-up.
hello,
Does Placer AI comply with requests for data from federal agencies?
No, we do not have federal agencies as customers.
Sorry, the question was, does Placer AI comply with requests for data from federal agency, not if federal agencies are customers?
Sorry, I don't have the answer to that question. I can get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kalin, I knew you were trying to talk.
Yeah,
do you have a
yes,
quick
I want to
question?
ask question.
Okay, one question, and then we're gonna move to the next topic.
Yeah, I want to know if it is by compulsory or what.
This is a vendor that the town staff brought to the council's attention if we were interested in using their services, and this is a presentation sort of explaining more information. So it's not a proposal per se. This is an opportunity for us to ask them questions about their technology.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. We appreciate the time, and I'm sure staff will follow up with additional questions, but thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we have public comments. For those who are in the room, there are 2 chairs that roll, so be careful when you pull them out. There's a microphone as well that has a button for unmute and unmute the buttons. Obviously, if it's red, it's muted. And if it's green, it's unmuted. If folks want to come up for public comments, I think we don't have a queue per se, but we can probably take people sitting down 2 at a time, and we'll just sort of work through it. Again, in the interest of time, we'll try to keep it relatively brief. So in the 2 to 3 minute range, as opposed to the 2-hour range per comments, just so that we can make sure everyone is heard and their perspectives are heard, as well as also it won't be a back and forth. And so it's not going to be a question and answer. This is your opportunity to hear from you. We'll be taking notes. But this is an opportunity for anyone to sort of speak if they choose to. We'll go through public comments, and then we'll go to unfinished business, and then we'll go through the work session discussions in terms of the order of the agenda. If someone online wants to, bless you, order a public, just please raise your hand, and I'll be sure to acknowledge you.
Yeah, but we are not seeing the agenda.
Yeah, well, it's just public comments for now. So if it changes, I'll let you know. Don't worry. We've got
Clarification, Mr. Mayor.
yes.
On the public comments, I know we're doing the agenda a little bit differently, and we're in a hybrid format here. Previously, we offered residents the opportunity to comment after each agenda item. Is the intent here that all of those comments come in public comments, or would that opportunity still be afforded after the agenda items?
If someone has a comment, they can use public comments to comment in that as well.
Okay, so we want, and I'm just trying to clarify here.
Yep, yep.
So we aren't continuing that, offering the opportunity after the agenda item.
No, just an interest, because I know we
Okay.
ran a little.
No, yeah,
back.
understood. I know it's just a little bit different. I want to make sure we understand
Yeah,
the
no,
order of things here.
No, it's good. If a
Thank you, Mr.
person,
Mayor.
anyone is free to comment on anything they feel relevant, and we will listen. I won't keep a strict timer, but if I wink at you nervously, then please wrap it up. All right. Last thing, you can make sure you unmute. You just say your name and street you live on, maybe.
Oh, okay. Good evening. My name is Kayla Anthony, proud resident of Riverdale Park. I live on 48th and Sheridan Street. And I did prepare a few remarks so that I don't ramble, so that'll help me stay on task. First, it is really lovely just to see the space and be here in person or in hybrid. I actually moved here right after the pandemic began. And so I have a special appreciation just for being able to be in person, come together as a town, and look forward to more opportunities like this. I'm here to express my support for the recommended concept designs for the town center area presented, I believe, at the August council meeting. Town center in this plan means a lot to me personally. When I first moved here, I didn't know anyone that lived in Riverdale Park. It was a global pandemic, so social connection was especially difficult. Whenever my husband and I were yearning to get out of the house or out of each other's hair, we would take long walks around town. And even though it is mostly a parking lot, town center is where Riverdale Park first started to feel like a community to us. We met many of our neighbors here while walking their dogs, playing with their kids, riding their bikes, and eventually visiting the farmer's market and grabbing a bite to eat or drink. Despite being far from perfect, the space is a draw for many in our community, and it is where I so often return when I want to run into folks that I've come to call friends these past 5 years. Like others in the area, I approach the space as a pedestrian, a cyclist, and a driver. I've experienced my fair share of near misses and close calls, despite being extra alert whenever I'm moving through the space. I was excited when I learned about the town's initiative to redesign and improve the space. I believe our town's investment in this area is long overdue. Enhancing pedestrian and bike access, calming traffic, and creating a safer and more attractive public space are critical steps toward a more connected, walkable, and economically vibrant Riverdale Park. I understand and respect the concerns raised by some regarding reductions in parking and changes to vehicular access. Does this plan incorporate everything I want or dream for the space? Certainly and understandably not. No design will remove all the friction in a multi-use town center, but I believe the recommended design concept strikes a thoughtful balance and will result in a safer and more accessible experience for everyone. There's been extensive community engagement throughout this process, and it's clear not everyone is going to agree on every detail, but I do believe the design team, our city staff, our volunteer committee members, and you all have listened, made compromises, and incorporated important feedback. I support our council moving forward with the current recommended design and continuing to work collaboratively with all stakeholders as the project progresses. A delay at this stage would not only stall momentum, but risk losing the broader benefits this community-driven plan can bring. Thank you for your time and for your leadership in our community.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Mr. Mayor,
Council member?
yeah, concerning the design, the town center,
Wait, council member, this is public comment, so it's actually an opportunity for the public to sort of say their piece. And then, we're just in a listening, take notes mode right now.
okay.
Thank you. Sir, your name?
Thank you, Mayor Inyang and members of the council. My name is Jim Schmitz. I'm a resident of Ward 4. My wife and I live in Riverdale Park Station. I too have prepared some remarks so I don't ramble and go too long. I'm also a member of the Prince George's County Immigrant Rights Collective. And also I volunteer with a group of Riverdale residents supporting local families who've had a family member taken away by ICE. While more residents are taking notice and stepping up to help, community organizations cannot carry this burden alone. And as they say, I believe we ain't seen nothing yet. The ICE budget will triple in the fiscal year that starts on Wednesday. So local governments must also step up to provide emergency support. We are living under a reign of terror from a cruel and tyrannical administration. ICE agents have been empowered to stop and interrogate any person on the street, maybe because they're not white, maybe because they're speaking some other language than English. This is not the America we know, and it's not the America we want. I know that the town cannot interfere in the work of federal agents, but we also cannot allow this behavior to become normalized. So there are two things we ask of the council. First, we ask for maximum transparency. Collect and publish as much information as possible on these abductions in our county and in our town. I believe it is deeply unhealthy for us as a community for our neighbors to suddenly disappear without any explanation or any acknowledgement. Second, I ask that each of you use your positions as elected officials to speak out often and forcefully. Make it clear that this activity is not welcome in Riverdale Park, that it violates our values as a community. Take a visible stand that you support the hardworking, tax-paying residents of our town and will do everything in your power to protect them. Unfortunately, these abductions are going to continue for the foreseeable future. As a town, we need a plan as to how we will respond and support our residents. And we all will need the fortitude to resist for the long haul. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Again, if anyone wants to join online, just raise your hand and we'll get you in the queue. We have another person in the room.
Good evening. My name is Jillian Villers and I'm a Ward 1 resident. I'm also a public school teacher in Montgomery County, just across the county line. And ICE was at an elementary school this morning, just a mile from the border. I'm here representing a group of Riverdale residents who are concerned for our immigrant neighbors. We are a collective of community members that stepped up in the moment of fear for our immigrant community. We are here today because our families, friends, and neighbors are under attack. Every week, neighbors are disappearing, families are being torn apart in the very streets you have walked today. People are afraid to go to work and even to access the basic resources they need to survive. Your job as our elected representatives is to listen to us and to do whatever you can to ensure the safety of the communities. We know you cannot altogether stop these attacks, and we appreciate many of the things you have done and said already. But we are also painfully aware of the many ways that we continue to sit on the sidelines of this crisis, which has left community organizers, including undocumented organizers, to pick up the burden and to do the jobs that should be done by many of you. So we're encouraging the city to the extent possible to share reports of detentions with community groups like PGIRC and the Riverdale Group. Local agencies must actively coordinate casework with immigrant serving organizations to ensure families impacted by detention are not left to navigate crises alone. Families who lose key breadwinners need coordinated support from local agencies. Children still need to go to school, bills still need to be paid, and families still need to eat. Currently, mutual aid networks are carrying this work alone. The first step is prevention. We need legal clinics in schools and neighborhoods most impacted so families can at least get consultations and start emergency planning. Teachers and front office staff are often the first to learn of detentions. And so we want assurances that you are working with teachers and PTAs at the school level. And we would love to see you join PGIRC for local canvassing events, Know Your Rights, presentations to as many affected community members as possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My request is simple. It's more of a safety issue. In front of Sessy's Grocery here at the town center, it looks like the tree roots have grown under the bricks and they've raised it up. And so I've tripped over it several times, and I'm worried that another senior citizen is going to get injured or something along those lines. So I just wanted to point that out to the town and take a look at it. I mean, honestly, I'll be happy to pay for it if it's not a responsibility of the town. I'm very concerned about, the safety of the oldsters. That would be me.
Thank you. We have one online, so we'll do the one online first and we'll do it. So Mr. Moran, we'll go with you first and then we'll go in room. So you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to you and members of council. My name is Mike Moran. I live on 47th Avenue in Ward 1. I just want to add my name to the list of constituents in our town who ask the town council and the mayor to a commitment to support our immigrant communities and just to kind of help in this time of abnormality and fear, and just wanted to add my kind of name to that list of to residents in this comment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Inyang and council members. My name is Sarah Longwell. I am a Ward 3 resident over on Madison Avenue, and I wanted to support the comments and topic that's being brought up today by CM Smith. Today I wanted to say a thank you to the council for back in, I think it's 2017 or 2018, when you voted to enact Code 53, sections 9 through 12, into our town code, which place restrictions on how our Riverdale Park Police can cooperate with federal civil immigration actions and prohibits our police force from asking about immigration status in the regular course of their investigation and duties. We do know, though, that code is one thing and culture is another. And so I'm inquiring about how this code has been folded into our onboarding process and ongoing professional development and training for our police force, and then how these vital protections are being reinforced within the culture of the force and of their team. Second, I would like to know what our town police's role will be when, not if, unidentified forces attempt to abduct our neighbors. We have seen videos of masked armed forces in unidentified vehicles who will not identify their departments or their badge numbers. And I'm concerned not only for the safety of the community, but also our police force in showing up to a situation where we just don't know who these people are that are abducting our neighbors. Sometimes people are being detained by identified forces and sometimes they are not. Then lastly, I have also noticed that our Riverdale Park police force has a minimum of 8 unmarked vehicles. This is a combination of white and black SUVs, some silver Dodge Chargers, and I am inquiring about the need for so many unmarked vehicles, especially when, as we've been seeing, many of these abductions and detentions are happening from forces in unmarked vehicles, and it's contributing to an atmosphere of fear. So for example, during Brentwood Day, neighbors and community members were concerned that ICE would show up, and there were a number of unmarked police vehicles from a number of different jurisdictions, including Riverdale Park Police. And I remember very clearly that there was a moment where there was an unmarked vehicle and people were very concerned about it. And thankfully someone knocked on that door and it was a Riverdale Park police officer. And to his credit and our thanks, he got out of the vehicle, made sure people could see his badges and identification clearly. And that really helped reduce the fear that folks were feeling in that moment. And so I truly believe that marking our police vehicles is one way to promote a better relationship between our police force and our community members, and immediately reduces fear when people know who they are, instead of, is that ICE or DHS or ERO or some unknown force that is potentially meaning harm to the community. So thank you for considering my remarks, and thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mara Collins. I'm in Ward 1 in Riverdale. I have a very brief comment. I'm also echoing a lot of the prior comments from our neighbors who shared concern about how to support our neighbors in this time of the way that federal agencies are currently operating in immigration enforcement. One concrete ask that I think we would like to see, we mentioned that many local groups and volunteers are currently coordinating ad hoc efforts to help the community and support their needs. But one area of concern is that there's a lot of uncertainty right now, a lot of confusion and fear about what rights people have. What are you able to do in certain situations and specific environments? So the town, I believe, could provide businesses, schools, public agencies with clear guidance or resources on knowing your rights. That would be a concrete and straightforward way to reach the community by providing some resources and guidance on, just clarity on what people's rights are in certain situations. To business owners, how to protect your employees, or just communicate clearly with what is supposed to happen, what is not supposed to happen, so that people can have some sense of clarity and a little bit of security about that. Another concrete suggestion would be for the town to share hotlines for 2 organizations that are currently offering hotlines for the public to track reports of incidents, because there's not a lot of transparency or data reporting. It's easy to access. So CASA and another organization called Migrant Solidarity Mutual Aid, or MSMA, they both have hotlines that can provide different levels of response. For CASA, it's primarily, I believe, legal follow-up and support, and MSMA has a little bit more ability to provide communication with the community and provide resources and follow-up with affected residents. So if we could encourage the town to provide that kind of information locally, directly to the community, to businesses, to schools and other public, spaces, that might be a great help to the kind of providing the kind of clarity on knowing your rights that we would like to promote. Thanks. I'll stop there.
Mr. Mayor, is it in order for us to ask questions of the residents who are providing comments? I just have a clarification on the status of those organizations that were mentioned.
A clarification question.
And we could take this after if you're not sure, but for those organizations, I'm just wondering if we know if those are 501c3 organizations with EIN. CASA, of course, we know, we're very familiar with them, so we know they are. But if that information is available, we can look it up too, but if you know off the top of your head.
I don't know off the top of my head the exact legal entity status of MSMA. I believe they have a nonprofit status. I don't know if it's a 501c3. They're fiscally sponsored by a 501c3. Okay, so
yeah, familiar with that. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Abby Kay, you see your hand is raised.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My name is Abby Kisa. I live on 46th Avenue in Ward 1. And one of the things that I'd like to bring into this conversation that my other residents have been talking about is in this culture of fear is related to the fact that there are people who are here in addition to many other people. There are people who are living in fear when they are legally here and have been here for many, many, many years. So much to the point where I have friends who are carrying legal papers with them because they're scared and want to be able to show that proof immediately. I mean, that's a horrifying situation that so many of our neighbors are in. And so I just wanted to put that into some perspective and have that be part of a conversation, because it's not solely people who are scared, who are, undocumented or don't have, the most current papers. And that feels really important to this conversation, given the makeup of our community.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Don't be shy.
I don't have much to say other than to say that I just wanted to add my voice to support the comments that have already been made. What compelled me to come was the incident that happened on Queens Chapel Road, where a man was detained in the middle of, or he was restrained in the middle of a really busy intersection for a really long time while he yelled, "Help me." And an ICE agent had a gun out and sort of waved it towards the people driving, like the people in the intersection. And that was, I think, really alarming and something, we obviously don't want to see happen more. And I looked up, obviously, the demographics of our community, and we're 55% Hispanic. And as the former speaker mentioned, there are many people here who are here with, documentation statuses that are of various types, and they're living in different levels of fear about that. And I think just it's a sign of solidarity to the 55% of our community members who may be feeling targeted right now to show our support. I don't know if this is an unreasonable request, but I wonder if there's some way that we could visually express as a city that we support our community members through signs or other symbols, because there aren't lots of other ways. I'm sorry, a lot of other people have had great ideas, all of that, but I wonder if there's a way to say or show something visually. And that's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Rebecca Lopez, we'll go with you, and then we'll take one in the room as well.
Okay, thank you. I really want to turn my video on, but it's not working for me right now. So you won't get to see my face. That's okay. Okay, so I'm grateful that this is on the town meeting agenda for today. All of the comments that my neighbors have made so far about their concerns with immigration enforcement, I 100% echo and support everything, all the ideas that they've put out there. I just want to also express my concern over this topic, especially because for all the reasons that have been described, of course, for those who don't have the status, documented status, for those that do, for those who are citizens, but appear like someone who may be of interest to federal law enforcement agencies. But also, I think for me, the thing that keeps me up at night, in addition to all of that, is impersonators, people who, there are already reports of this happening in New York and North Carolina, of people impersonating ICE and assaulting immigrant women. And I'm deeply troubled and concerned by the current atmosphere, which invites this behavior. And I'm really concerned for children as well. There's nothing to protect anyone from them or their children being the victims of terrible crimes because people are impersonating ICE agents. And I understand that there are limitations on what local government do, but there's a part of me that just feels like that's an unacceptable answer at the same time. And so my hope is that there has to be something that we can do, because there has to be something that we can do to protect our community from crime like that. And so there has to be a way for us as a community to be able to discern with the support of our local government to be able to discern who is approaching us and you know, that they are who they actually are. And so I'm just inviting my neighbors, and I'm inviting our town to really think critically about that, and to find some path forward that balances those concerns, because there has to be some answer to that. It can't just be that we are, you know, we're just sitting ducks and someone can come up to me or one of my neighbors and say, I'm taking your kid away. I mean, what parent in that situation wouldn't go absolutely insane, you know, to fight for their kid because they don't know who's trying to take their kid away. So these are just, that's where my mind goes, especially as we know that the funding is increasing for these groups, and that, you know, there doesn't seem to be any steps towards increased transparency on their end. And so that's an invitation, and I'm sure we're going to continue this conversation, but that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff members. My name is Nova Johns. I am Ward 3 member 4800 Nicholson Street. I'm also a member of Riverdale Fire Department. I just wanted to briefly remind everyone that October is recognized as National Fire Prevention Month to raise awareness about fire safety and prevention. This year's campaign is Charge into Fire Safety, which focuses on lithium-ion batteries in your home. Anything that's being charged, your cell phones, your laptops, your headphones, battery-operated vacuums, scooters, power tools. We have to be mindful of using the correct chargers, taking those off when they're at 100%, not charging your phone in your bed. But also I do want to reiterate, even though that is the this year's campaign, the basics of fire smoke detectors. Every floor in your home should have a smoke detector. If you do not have a smoke detector, there is a phone number that you all can, there's a resource in the county, 301-583-2200. Again, 301-583-2200. I've been a volunteer first responder for going on 20 years. And unfortunately, I have seen loss of lives that were preventable based on the fact of no working smoke detectors. We are looking forward to pre-K visits from Riverdale Elementary School in the next 3 months. So if your pre-K is coming home talking about us, that's us. And if there's any type of childcare center or large group in the town of Riverdale Park that would like to come do a station tour within reason, please email us at info@riverdalevfd.org or inbox us at any of our online or Facebook, Riverdale Fire Department Incorporated, and also our Instagram, and we will work with you to get you a station tour down to our department. The county is having a fire and life safety education open house per se, October 11th at Brentwood Fire Department at 3716 Rhode Island Avenue. That's October 11th from 11 to 3. You can come out and meet all kinds of people, touch a truck, food trucks, a bunch of giveaways, Yeti raffle. You can meet the intern fire chief. A lot of excitement going on that day. And again, if you are looking to be a member, you can join now. We can potentially get you into a fire and EMS class over the summer. If not next fall, once you get through the application process, there's a lot of benefits to not even just being a volunteer firefighter EMS, but being a local member. So I just want to keep reiterating that as we move forward. So again, thank you so much for your time. And again, please, if you do not have working smoke detectors in your home, please utilize the resources. If you cannot afford one, please utilize that phone number. Again, 301-583-2200. It's a simple thing that can be fixed that can impact your life. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No. Well, no problem. Sorry.
First of all, thank you for that. I definitely charge my phone in bed, so I will stop doing that. A few things I wanted to share. One, I totally agree with my neighbor Bruce's flag on the sidewalk in front of CC's. It would be great to get that fixed. I'm not quite a senior citizen yet, and also definitely almost trip on that frequently. Two, I also wanted to to plus one to my neighbor's earlier remark about moving with haste on the town center redesign. I am freaked out by the idea of using Placer AI, but I do want us to move with haste to redesign that really, really important center of our community. So I plan on staying for that conversation, but really wanted to make sure in public comment period to make sure that y'all are hearing that residents both love that area and desperately want it changed. I almost got hit on my bike on the way here at that intersection because it's so terrible. And then finally, want to plus one everything that my neighbors have said about getting proactive on the immigration issue. I don't want us to wait until something like what happened at the intersection at Queens Chapel happens in our own town to our own residents. I think of our town as more broad than just where the boundaries of the town are, and would really encourage folks on the council to think about how we can be proactive. My neighbors have offered some really great solutions to that. I also just want to say two more things on that. One, I haven't had the opportunity to meet Councilwoman Ramos yet, but I know the rest of you who are both in person and online. And I know you got into public service because you care about people. And so I would just echo everything that folks have said to both thank you for the things that you've already done and to make sure that we are getting as loud as possible with the resources that we have at our disposal with the town. And also in your roles as public officials. This is actually really important, an important time to get loud and not to get quiet. And then I'd also just point, as I was sitting here listening to my neighbors really eloquently make some asks of all of you, I was also just looking at our new town seal that has a butterfly in it, which is such a critical, such a critical part of the immigration reform movement and a beautiful symbol of the ways in which people move across borders, move in and out of communities. And we're really lucky that 55% of this community is Hispanic, not all of whom are immigrants, but so many people have chosen to make this place home. And I ask folks to really consider the ways in which we can go above and beyond anything that we're seeing from our neighboring municipalities, not using that as a precedent or as a limitation, but really looking for ways that we can articulate how important our neighbors are to us in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
I just wanted to add a word of support to Heather's comments regarding moving ahead with the redesign. I know there's been a lot of good ideas and important discussion tonight, and also with the supporting of our immigrant neighbors. So thank you, Heather, for saying that so eloquently.
GM iPhone, who was, could you say your name?
Oh, yes, sorry. This is Grace Miners.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Mr.
Good-
Mayor.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want a quick clarification. Was it such that we're not making comments during different segments during the meeting related to that? You want all public comments on all subjects at the beginning of the meeting? Is that what you're saying?
Just for the, no, we'll keep you, people will be able to like provide comments during, it just was the presentation. That was the only thing that we're just gonna, if you had public comments, just in the interest of time, since that went a little long, but if you want to save your comments for the section.
I do want to save my comments related to the town center redesign at the time we're discussing the town center redesign.
Okay.
But
You'll be able to.
But before I get to that, I also want to say that my name is Michael Herman. I'm a resident of Oliver Street here in Riverdale Park. And I want to say that tonight is a very proud moment for me, sitting here listening to the residents of our community. Some 25 plus years ago, when I started getting involved, or over 30 years ago, when I started getting involved in town governance, the town was a very different composition than it is today. And there was so much reticence by so many people to support the interests of people that didn't look like them. And I said, as I sit here tonight and look around at some of the people who've made comments tonight about respecting and welcoming people that don't look like them, it's a graduation moment for our community, and it's a very healthy progression from a place that some of us have seen more than, a quarter of a century ago. And I just want to say a shout out to and a compliment to many of the people who are sitting here tonight. I applaud you and I thank you for your comments and your support in the community. And I'll hold the rest of my comments till later.
Thank you. Any other public comments? As mentioned, you'll be able to add public comments in at the end of individual sections as we go through the agenda, like we normally do. But is there any online? No? Okay. Thank you all. I appreciate that. That was a fruitful conversation. Next on the agenda, we will have unfinished business, which is the Town of Riverdale Park support for immigrant communities. Our town manager will have a presentation.
Yes, good evening again, Mr. Mayor. And I don't have PowerPoint slides or anything, but I just want to follow up on the discussion that's already taken place. So it is a difficult time, and whether we choose the word difficult or unprecedented or whatever word is used to describe what's happening in terms of immigration. And I would ask that we actually broaden thoughts for just how unprecedented time is. It is because it's not immigrants, period. It's vulnerable peoples. And the town's values are about equity and inclusion and diversity. And so whether it's the homeless encampments and homeless or unhoused folks being told you're not welcome in our nation's capital, or whether it is our transgendered neighbors who are being told that they are now some sort of domestic terrorist, or the Black community, or the gay community more broadly. It's really about vulnerable peoples. And there's a real focus on the immigrant enforcement. And there's lots of bombastic rhetoric. And there's tactics employed that further that bombastic rhetoric. And as a town government, we are limited on what we can do. Now, we heard lots of good ideas tonight. I have my own list, but I heard things tonight that aren't on my list. And that's good. And the majority of what I heard tonight are things that we can add to the town staff list to come back and talk to the mayor and council about. Mr. Schmitz, who left, said early on, and I've heard some others echo that, we can't impede, interfere, we cannot stop, and I would say we can't distract the federal authorities who are in the process of carrying out their orders in terms of a detention or an arrest. That lessens public safety. Full stop. Blowing horns, yelling, screaming. You have folks that are there carrying out a difficult task, and it's never pretty to detain someone who's not cooperating with a detention. I worked in law enforcement. I know what it is to put someone in restraints. It never looks good. It always looks bad. It looks bad when our officers go out here. We had a fellow who assaulted someone with a machete. When we took him into custody, it wasn't pretty. It doesn't look good. And that's reality. It's always going to look bad. It's always going to look bad in the videos. It's a situation, though, whether it's ICE or US Marshals, state police, our police, distracting them, yelling and screaming at them when they're already engaged in a high-risk situation, all that does is make it more dangerous for everyone, the bystanders. It makes it more dangerous for the officers, and it makes it more dangerous for the people being detained. So I want to just unequivocally say, from a public safety standpoint, that's something the town cannot support. However, there's a lot of stuff that we have done. And so I just want to talk a little bit about what we have done and things that are on my list that weren't on the other list. And so all of our communications now are in English and Spanish. And this is our first night with this setup, but we will have real-time translation services. That's an investment that the mayor and council have made. And we share information on knowing your rights and related resources. And someone mentioned our Chapter 53, and that was something we rewrote a number of years ago. And we've established in 2025, now granted it's for our staff, but we established a legal assistance program for town employees who may have concerns about immigration status, if they're here on temporary protective status and things of that nature. That butterfly was from an immigrant town employee. We also do outreach. I heard the word culture mentioned, I think maybe in the first row here, or maybe it was this row talked about culture. Our codes, our policies are ingrained in our culture. We have an incredible organization here. Chief, if I get anything wrong here, let me know. But I think 58% of our police force now speaks Spanish. I've been here 8.5 years. 8.5 years ago, we were probably more in the 10%. All right. And so we've come a long way. Now that's just in the police department. And then we have folks in many other departments. Robert Redmond speaks Spanish. So that's a serious focus that we have in our recruitment. And in terms of outreach, I get that there's fear in the community. There's fear in the immigrant community, and then there's fear in the community that's their allies, right? And but we have really broken down barriers in terms of connecting with the immigrant community. Our police department meets with representatives from the immigrant community, both formally and informally, constantly. German, do you have anything that you want to say on that?
Yeah, sure. So at St. Bernard's, once a month, we meet with a lot of community members from east of the river there, and they voice their concerns. I think the last 2 meetings that we've had, most of the concerns that they've raised have been about just the homeless population. But I think maybe we had one question that had to do with ICE, and it was something that another member from the community was able to answer. And because of that, constant meetings that we have with them, those president members, so I was actually going to be my first. That's pretty good satisfaction on our part that they're comfortable with us. And we pretty much put out the word, say, look, if you have any questions, concerns, you could always give us a call, ask us. And if there's anything we can do for you, we'll be more than happy to help you.
And I referred to him as German. That's German Garcia. He's our deputy chief of police.
I would just add to that everybody has a department cell phone, and they constantly get calls from the community, not just the immigrant community, but for everyone. So they're comfortable calling us, asking for advice.
And a little known fact, the police department processes something called a U visa. And we receive several applications every month. And our deputy chief processes the U visa applications. So we previously, before the extended closure of Town Hall, we hosted English as a second language courses here. That's going to start back up probably as soon as we get our permanent UNO. We're here on a temporary use and occupancy permit tonight. When we launched the Farmers Market Dollar program, probably 95% of the participants in that program were from our immigrant community. I already mentioned the town's commitment to celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusion. So what can be done in addition to what we do? So we heard some good ideas here this evening. And so having transparent discussions about what we can do and having that sharing of information, that's one thing we can do. So it's kind of baseline, but we should just be able to have discussions and not necessarily wait for an agenda item. But if the community has an idea, email us, call us. It shouldn't be, oh, can this be talked about on an agenda? Or, I mean, still work with your electeds, but if you have an idea today, let's not wait the 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whenever you have time. Just send us an email. If it's something we can do, that the mayor and council have been very clear in their vision and commitment statements in terms of what our values are and in our value statements. So if you have an idea, please share it with the staff, and it may be something we can enact quickly. We heard about providing financial assistance to organizations. And actually, if you look back on the agendas for May 19th, June 9th, June 16th, the mayor and council were talking about, well, the agenda item title was undesignated social concerns. But the conversations that the mayor and council had at those meetings were all centered on assisting the immigrant community. And that's actually why we, from the staff perspective, we saw this as a continuation of that discussion or those discussions. So financial assistance could be provided there. And then we could offer up the space for those types of trainings, or if legal aid or something wanted to set up shop in one of our little breakout rooms so they could meet with folks, that's something that we can simply arrange. And then this is not a change, but it's a memorializing a current process. And I think this answers some questions that we heard from the community tonight. And that is, how do we know who's doing what in the community? In terms of if there's an apparent detention or an arrest, how do we know who that is? Well, generally, we're not being told ahead of time. But if you happen to see something, you can call the police department. And the way we respond to those, and Chief, if I missed something, again, chime in, but we would respond. And if it's not apparent who folks are, then we would ask. One, we'd have our body worn camera on. We would ask who they are, have them provide credentials to verify that. And that's our process now, because our body worn cameras are on when we interact with folks. And if we didn't know who someone was upon talking to them, we would ask for them to verify that. That's something that we're going to memorialize into a policy or a procedure. The chief has committed to that. And that's what LA did a few months ago. I think it was back in June. I think that the other thing that the town can do, mayor and council, is perhaps we can work with the state to ensure that if they're conducting operations in Maryland, that the officers, the federal officers who are conducting those, that all the federal officers have less lethal options available to them. Because I've seen the videos, and typically people have been wearing their vest in the most recent videos, and they have firearms and handcuffs. But Chief, our officers carry batons, they carry pepper spray, and they carry tasers. And that's something I don't see on the federal officers. And if there's going to be a confrontation, it would be good if officers were equipped to not have a choice. I have handcuffs and a gun. And perhaps the town could work with the state and this, because I really think the state would have to amplify that type of an ask to the federal government. Internally, and I think this could be extended externally from what I heard here tonight, but internally, ensure that we have proper signage for our non-public spaces here in the building, so it's clear what's public and what's not. Because again, we may have employees who are here under different statuses, and we should be clear what areas are public that ICE has a right to walk into, and what areas are not public. And this ties into that, developing a written protocol for our staff should ICE show up and want to go through our facilities. And then the last thing that we had that wasn't mentioned already is to develop a incentive for town staff that want to volunteer, and they would have to be approved nonprofits, but that want to volunteer nonprofits on immigration issues to offer some sort of paid time off to assist folks. If folks say, hey, I'd love to volunteer, I can't make that happen, that we could assist staff in doing that. So those are some of the ideas that staff came up with. And then we have the other ideas that were mentioned here tonight that we will add to our list, and look to have a conversation with the mayor and council. The vast majority of these things are things that I would get with my leadership team on, and because they don't require council authorization, and it's really operational type things, as opposed to making a donation, because from my position, all donations, regardless if it's within my spending authority, I bring all donations to the mayor and council. If the town's making a donation to an organization, that will require a motion and a vote by the council.
Thank you, town manager, for the presentation and detailing sort of what the town has been doing, and answering some of the questions that came up in public comments as well. I know before I answer or open up to council questions or comments, it's been echoed more eloquently than I think I could in some of the public comments about the sort of unprecedented nature of what's been happening. As a person who has, and I'm sure a lot of us have, seen video of apprehensions, I think, how you characterize of anytime a person is trying to restrain another person is not a pretty sight. And a lot of times we don't see that. But to see it happen so close to where we are, and then to see the actions of the officers in question, I'm watching it, hoping that the worst doesn't happen when, firearms are open and pointed at people. People are grabbing for clips of guns. I mean, it's just, too often we've seen the worst happen. And I think that shook a lot of us to its core. And so I'm glad that we're having conversations like this, as difficult as they are. One, for us to sort of understand what is, what is the town doing? What can the town do? What can we do? And then obviously to brainstorm and see what else can be done. And so with that, I will open up to council questions. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that presentation, Mr. Town Manager. Excuse me for a second. Certainly want to thank staff for putting that together and the thought that you put in to this presentation and continue to put in every day for supporting our residents no matter where they come from, and particularly to the police department for being here tonight and for doing those same things every day and being integrated with the community. I want to clarify one thing that you asserted there, and you said if it's apparent who those people are, how do staff or including the police department determine, like, what is apparent?
So if I understand the question, if you're dispatched to a scene and it's not apparent that who the actors are.
Well, how do we determine, like, what is apparency? What do we mean by that? Like a badge number? So if I ordered for $47.24 from Feds Apparel, this DHS police agency jacket, would that be apparent who I am?
I wasn't finished.
Okay, go ahead, please.
If we're not sure, we will request a supervisor to the scene from that agency.
We will what? I'm sorry.
Request their supervisor if they're not on the scene to respond.
How do you become sure?
If we can't identify who they are, and they don't have some type of paperwork about why they're there.
So we're asking for paperwork. We're asking for a personal identification, not just something that says ICE or DHS. We're saying, who are you? What gives you the authority to be taking this action right now before that person is detained?
Sometimes it's easier than others to identify who people are, right? Every situation is different. Every situation is fluid. But we will make sure we identify who is there on the scene to ensure it's law enforcement.
That's still a little vague to me, Chief. I'm sorry. Like, I don't, in the videos that we've seen, for example, those folks are wearing insignia indicating they're from ICE that can be purchased online for relatively low cost. If we were to come across the scenario from Queens Chapel, would our officers intervene to ask for identification? And I want to thoroughly concede this is a tough question, and I appreciate you being here to answer it. There's not an easy answer to it. I recognize that, but this is something I'm really concerned about because we have seen reports, as mentioned earlier, of folks purchasing things off the internet to make themselves look like ICE or other federal law enforcement officials and abusing, kidnapping people. Like, this is not a hypothetical. This is a thing that's happening.
I can only speak to what I've seen, right? I apparently haven't seen all the videos. And we haven't had any instance in town where we've had any interaction with ICE. So it's a little hard for me to discuss what ifs of other places. I can only speak to our department, what our policies are and how we would handle.
Okay, I'm still not clear on how we are ensuring that those people are identifying themselves.
Well, we're going to have a conversation with them and it's going to be recorded on body cam, like every interaction that we have in the community.
Understood. And is that conversation, when does that conversation begin? You arrive on scene, do you immediately ask for that identification?
Every scenario is different, Councilmember. So, and if we're talking about the video that we saw, depending on when we got there, if there's still a wrestling match in the middle of the street, we're probably not going to interfere and ask for identification at that time. We're going to try to de-escalate the situation. If it's in our community, calm the community. If we need to assist, and then we'll figure it out from there. If they're, I can't imagine that you can buy a Riverdale Park uniform online as well, right? Anybody can buy a police uniform. I mean, that's how it is. But they usually don't show up with federal cars and, 6 unmarked cars with lights and sirens. And I mean, there's generally different ways. We're going to have a conversation with them. We will do our best to identify who they are.
So in the videos I've seen, both in neighboring communities and around the country, ICE isn't showing up with lights or sirens or anything like that. They are Hertz or Enterprise rent-a-cars that they have driven to the scene and are putting people in vans. I really appreciate you answering, Chief, and for your candor there. I think the fact is we have unidentified, masked, violent people abducting residents off streets in neighboring communities, and it's an when, not an if, that is going to happen in our community. I don't understand, as I believe in, I know there's some nuance to the law, but open carry, I believe, is illegal in Maryland. I don't understand why, if we have not positively and personally identified individuals engaged in abducting, is what it looks like to me, people off the streets, why we wouldn't assume that that is an unlawful activity before we identify those people. If anyone else was open carrying, masked, refusing to identify themselves in our community, we would stop those people. I would like to think so anyway. And, I approach this issue from the golden rule. And I'm not a person of faith, but I was raised in that tradition and I hold that close. And I wonder, if I were in that situation, what I would want my neighbors to do for me. And I think about one of my best friends who's canvassed for me in our town. I worked with him professionally for a number of years. My friend Miguel, who came here, was brought here as a small child, undocumented. He's a bit older than me. If he were here, I would say he's a lot older than me. But he was able to obtain citizenship during the Reagan years through the Reagan amnesty programs. He's a person who is working from home now permanently because he's scared to leave his house. He's scared to let his children go to school. And mind you, even though he has been naturalized, he is a citizen. The White House filed in the Supreme Court today an argument saying that he isn't, regardless of the status that's been granted to him. And I think about, as mentioned, folks who are undocumented and those that are documented, like my friend Miguel, who are being snatched off our streets. They are, and includes citizens, right? Detained for multiple days in atrocious conditions that violate their human rights. In many cases, they're being deported not to their home countries, but to places like Rwanda and Sudan and even Iraq, where they don't speak the language, don't know anyone. And no one is told where they're going. Job Arias Mendoza, that's the person that was arrested in the incident at Queens Chapel. If you go up and look at the public database for DHS that is supposed to keep track of these people, this is the public accountability mechanism so that you can see that where people are, get them lawyers, get them Red Cross or whatever the case may be. There's no information on there. He might be dead right now. That's happened before to immigrants in ICE custody. We don't know where he is. He has been disappeared. This isn't something that is hypothetical or hyperbole. This is happening every day in our country, in our community, and it is going to happen in our town. And I know the answers here aren't easy, but I can't accept that the best we can do is sit by and watch it happen and then figure out afterwards. I think we can come up with better answers than that. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would ask that this item continue to be on the agenda as unfinished business in future sessions so we can continue to talk about it. I think we can follow up on a lot of the specifics that were proposed here tonight in terms of, cooperating with local organizations, marking cars as we hear we can. I know I've spoken with the town manager about that and there are some concerns there, but I think there might be some sort of temporary markings we could do for community engagement events. We've got a big to-do list here, but I think we've got to be able to do more than just the proactive things, and the proactive things are good. We need to address what we're willing to do in the moment when people who are armed, masked, unidentified, refusing to identify themselves are abducting people off our streets, because just standing by and not, figuring it out later, I don't think that's good enough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I appreciate your thoughts and comments. There was a lot there. I know the town manager, I know you had some things you wanted to respond to.
Yes, sir.
Would you want to do that right now?
Sure.
Okay.
So just so we're clear, as far as the town is aware, there has not been an ICE arrest or detention in the town to which the police were notified and the police responded. That has not yet occurred. To be clear, if we respond, either we see something happening, and that's a call for service, a self-generated call for service, or if we're dispatched, the police who are trained, who are educated, who are experienced in these matters will, to their satisfaction, their professional satisfaction, not a layperson satisfaction, to their professional satisfaction, they will make sure that the people who are carrying out this activity are who they purport themselves to be. It may be a badge, it may be totality of circumstance, it'd be a conversation. The police will make sure that occurs. And the police are not going to allow someone who's impersonating someone to abduct someone. That will not occur. And the chief will make sure of that through his directives to his staff. And it will be to the chief's satisfaction and mine, because that's how the general orders are promulgated. And what exactly that looks like, that's something I'll have a further conversation with the chief about. In full disclosure, this idea and reading about the LA thing and memorializing our current process, that's something that we've talked about for 2 days. I think we talked on Saturday saying, hey, can we memorialize that? And so I think we have a good process. We'll memorialize it into a policy. And I think that's the right thing to do. And might someone that we don't interact with impersonate someone? Sure. But if we interact with them, we will verify that they are who they say they are. Does that satisfy your concern, council member?
I appreciate the response, Mr. Town Manager. I'm wondering what our actions are when the folks involved in that say kick rocks. Because everything I've seen indicates that they're not willing to answer those questions to local law enforcement.
Well, fortunately, on the working level, we have always maintained a good working relationship with fellow law enforcement, whether we agreed with what they were doing or not. And could they tell us to kick rocks? Yes. But then the solution to that is not the police department in a municipal corporation. The solution to that is a political one. And that's something then for the mayor and council to, sir, I'm sorry, I appear to be frustrating you with my words, but it is a political one.
Well, while we're talking about a political solution, someone's being disappeared.
But if someone tells us to kick rocks, sir, we are not going to physically restrain federal law enforcement officers. That's not going to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Councilmember Ramos, we'll go with you, and then I know Councilmember Worsnop next to me also has a comment as well.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I just wanted to get clarification. I understand that ICE is coming to Riverdale. The police department are not being informed because of course they come on their own will whenever they want to. But if they do come and the police is present, the police are going to start asking who they are to verify and confirm that they're actual ICE agents. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, should we, as a community, immediately call the police if we see ICE? Just to get that confirmation or clarification that they are who they are? Or will this be warranted as a non-emergency?
You should, if there's some sort of activity that you're concerned about, yes, you should call the police.
I mean, it is concerning overall. It's going to be
Yes.
concerning overall because you're seeing individuals with masks now, and we don't know if they are who they say they are. So I would say it would be warranted as an emergency, right? Yes or no? I don't know.
It was a yes, but we're gonna get
Okay.
the chief a mic so that you can hear him online.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I just don't see no one. It just can't see anybody right now. Okay.
There you
All
go.
right.
So my answer is if you're concerned and are not aware who these individuals are, please call.
Okay. Thank you, because I would love to share that with at least, my part of the community and let them know that if they do see any activity, they are concerned, they are entitled to make that phone call and to not be afraid.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Councilmember Worsnop.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to thank, I know, I'm ducking beneath my screen. Okay. I want to thank everyone. Thanks. Not used to using a mic. Here I am. Okay. Thank you to everyone for being here. I really appreciate your time, your comments. Thank you to my colleagues. Thank you to town staff. Thank you to police department. I share, the outrage that many people have expressed. So thank you for putting that into words. I think this discussion has pointed us to a lot of good ideas that we will follow up on, as has been said. I also want to point out that just this discussion we have just been engaged in illustrates what a fraught and horrible position so many have been put in by these actions that none of us asked for, right? And are being taken by other actors. There is no easy answer, right? We want there to be an easy answer, but there isn't. And in my view, all municipalities in Maryland right now, particularly in our county, are dealing with this. And we should be working with them to ask for support from the state to deal with this public safety issue. And I hope that we will work together to do that. Obviously, this situation poses a range of public safety concerns. Many of them have been expressed by people tonight. And what exactly should be done by who in every particular situation is impossible to say, right? We have just seen that. And it is not, I don't think, sufficient to leave towns to act on their own to deal with this problem. So I hope that that can be one of our next steps as a council. But thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other council member comments on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Kalon, go ahead.
let me say thanks to everybody for this conversation. You see, this operation is not a separate operation. It's a federal operation. It's not easy for some people to personate, to go and arrest people unnecessarily. All the people that you are seeing, they're doing this job. They are officers. You see, some people are saying they don't have badges, they have their badges, but they don't just have to display it like that, because when they are checking for criminals, those who have records, those who have been raping people, women, those who have been selling drugs, all are included in these operations. To say people are going unnecessarily to personate to arrest people, no, they can't do it. Nobody can personate. In fact, in this America here, to personate here is not easy, because the people are so clever. When they see, they know whether you are. As soon as they see you, they know. Oh, this is not an officer. They will tell you right there. When they see officer, they know who is officers. So let's forget to say they don't identify themselves. These are secret operations. I was once a police officer. Some places where you are going, you don't have to identify yourself, because when you identify yourself, you miss your target. So this is my own contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. Any other council member comments? Any public comments on this topic? We have a public comment coming to the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I realized I didn't introduce myself before. My name is Heather. I live in Ward 1 and have lived in Riverdale for a long time, since 2009. Mr. Town Manager, I appreciate your proactive list, and some of us definitely wrote down some of the things that you had on your list that we did not have on our list. I think the thing that I wanted to add is I appreciate that the Riverdale Police Department has done the relationship building within this community that it has, that's important. And I appreciate that the Riverdale Police Department has done relationship building with other law enforcement agencies that it's done, which is important. What we're pointing to is masked folks kidnapping people off the street who are not law enforcement. I understand that has not literally happened within the boundaries of this town yet. As Councilmember Smith said, that's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so the sooner that we can start to understand as community members what our role is, as town staff what your role is, and as the town council what your role is, which are all different roles. But the sooner that we can understand what each of our roles is when we are dealing with folks who are masked kidnappers of people who are not law enforcement, I think it requires a different approach, a different solution. It requires a different mindset. And what I hear from your mindset is that you believe that these people are still responsive to anyone, to any authority whatsoever. They are not. So when Councilmember Smith asked what happens when they tell us to kick rocks, that is literally what is going to happen if they answer at all. And so the sooner that we can start to understand how dire the situation is and that it is not a law enforcement situation, I think we're going to have a different list, and I'm eager to work with you on that. But we're just, I'm hearing the town not equipped right now to deal with the moment. And I really want us to get to the place where the town is equipped to deal with the moment, and look forward to working with you, with town staff, and with the council to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Any other public comments? I got a couple thoughts on this. One, this is something that every municipality in PG County, probably I'm assuming in Montgomery County too, obviously in the state of Maryland with Baltimore, but specifically the counties that are closest to DC are actively thinking about. And so we're not unique in this. The video in Hyattsville has been sort of shared all over, and so it's hit close to home. And so there are elements of, from a county and state perspective, what can be done? How do we engage our federal delegation to put pressure on oversight of Department of Homeland Security. You know, midterm elections aren't here yet, but that's another opportunity too to sort of get involved, and so to bring balance to this conversation. But in the interim step, I hear a lot of the concerns about how do police sort of identify an impersonating person, and I don't know if that's a new thing. You know, this is a new concept in terms of what we're talking about from immigration enforcement, but impersonating an officer I know is illegal, and so I'm sure those are one of the many laws that police have to be able to sort of carry out. And so whatever those policies are, and whether you publicize those or not for a variety of reasons, I would hope that at least the message coming from, this meeting is that there needs to be a way to be able to identify that if I all of a sudden buy all the right equipment and start saying that I am a person that I am not, that there's a way that that can be found, or and if I choose not to disclose, like sort of what happens. And so I hear the concerns sort of loud and clear, and I think that that's been sort of noted for the record of that's a concern that folks have, and how will the police respond to that. And so I appreciate you, the council member, a couple of folks bringing that up. The other that I would sort of bring up is just the last point that we all have, Heather, I like how you put it, we all have different roles to play in this. And so there are certain things that the town legally are restricted to do. And I know I personally wouldn't feel comfortable asking a police officer to do something that would be illegal or put them in legal jeopardy for their careers, as well as even their physical persons. But there are things that we can probably do that are different in terms of how we protest, in terms of how we make sure that we are keeping this issue top of mind. And so I like the way you framed it. How do we sort of understand what role we all play in this ecosystem in order to make sure that we all sort of stay safe and keep our community protected? It'll look differently. And the tragedy is that if this was some random militia of people who were doing this, that's how it feels like, but the response would be different than this federal agency. And we're concerned about the copycats, and I think that's a real thing. But, what's more likely to happen is a federal agency actually going in and doing this and trying not to share much information. And that is what, we have to make sure we're prepared for. But the reality being that, town manager didn't mention this, but I did ask, can we ask legal counsel just to weigh in on this? And was very thorough in terms of not just from a, state, federal law. I think some of this goes back into our long history in our country, if you want to do that history of federal agencies taking precedent over local municipalities and not being able to interfere, goes back, hundreds of years. And so it's pretty clear in terms of what officers can and cannot do, interfere, distract, as sort of has been stated. And so I'm still trying to figure out what gray area does that leave us, and what can we do as elected officials and as residents? How can we make sure that we're doing as much as possible so that, we're protecting our community as much as we can. But what's difficult here is the biggest concern, at least for me, is federal agents coming in, right? And that's just in a lot of ways unprecedented counterbalance to our sort of, safety position in our town. So, but I appreciate the comments on this. I know it's a very passionate topic. I know it's 9:09, and there are some folks who are here to talk about at least our first work session item. And so I'm going to say that we're going to move on from this topic. If you have more comments or questions, please feel free to reach out to me, anyone on the council, town staff, the police chief, literally anyone who has an email address or phone number. We will be happy to take any comments that you have. So with that, we will move to the work session, item number 1. Let's see if we can get through this, and then we may table the rest of the stuff for a future session. We may do the town manager report if there's sort of pressing things that we need to cover in terms of public service announcements, but I want to get through at least the work session discussion on the concept recommendations for Town Center Trail and parking lot redesign in Atoli Place, Lafayette. Avenue redesign projects. So we will switch to our first work session. Again, this is more of an update. We've kept this on the agenda pretty much every meeting for the last few weeks to offer folks the opportunity to sort of talk about this. No legislative action is going to be done at this moment for this session. And with that, I don't believe we have is there a presentation on this? There is. Brian, is that going to be you?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I can certainly speak to this. Good evening again, Mayor and Council. During the last council meeting, Mayor and Council suggested that we conduct additional outreach to businesses based on feedback we were receiving. So staff invited businesses and others to attend one-on-one meetings to answer. Pardon me, I'm also handling the Zoom meeting. There we go. We invited local businesses and others to one-on-one meetings to answer any questions that businesses had about the current concept plans. We had hosted 3 meetings that were requested by local businesses and property owners. 2 of the businesses in these meetings were really focused on the parking loss, and that was their major concern with the concept design. There was a 3rd meeting where there was a number of other concerns as well with the concept plan. And after these meetings, actually, we received a significant number of emails and messages from businesses and a lot more participation, primarily focused on the parking, the loss of parking, but there were also some other comments as well. And so all of the comments were passed along to the property or the project management team. And after compiling all of these concerns, the project team put together a frequently asked questions document to help answer their thought process on why some of their decisions were made the way they were, and to help clarify some of those questions that we were receiving pretty regularly. I believe tonight we actually have Rodney Tissue. Hopefully Rodney could provide a quick update on the project team's experience receiving the feedback and their thoughts in general.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that. I think the only thing that I would add is, I feel like we've had a good process that evolved over the last 9 months to engage the public as much as possible. When I was working with Mead and Hunt as we were putting these together, we said there's a multitude of designs that could be done in this space. And with all the competing interests for the space in the town center, it doesn't really surprise me that we have a lot of different opinions on that. And I think that's healthy. I'm not surprised that folks even have their own design concepts because there's just, again, a lot of possibilities there. But we stand behind our recommendation. But, we're willing to dialogue with anyone. And if you want us to continue to have some type of public input, just give us that direction and we'll definitely do it.
Thank you, Mr. Tissue. Is there anything else to present, or should we open it up for council member comments and then public comments?
I think that the only other thing I forgot to mention was that earlier today we received a message from the Riverdale Park Business Association with some additional thoughts. I haven't had a chance to compile all of those yet, but those will certainly be included on the frequently asked questions with any responses that the project team has.
Okay, thank you. We have some members present in person, so I'm sure we will get to that. Any council comments on this project? Council member? Any other council member comments first?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor McClellan.
let's put this backward first. Let's continue to our agenda. Let's push it to next year so that we can see what is going to happen. Let's put it to next year, like March or April. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. Council member Worsnop.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be curious to hear just quickly from town staff an update on the other conversations that were had between the last session with businesses?
I can go into a little bit more depth on those conversations. So we had sent out invitations to businesses in the town center area for offering one-on-one meetings to speak with Mr. Tissue about the concepts and any sort of questions they may have. And two of the three respondees, they had primarily their questions were regarding the parking and the new proposed parking and how many spaces would be potentially lost or gained in that general area. There was a third meeting where there was more questions about I guess in general about the plaza space, how it would be used, and the alignment of roads, and a little bit more broad in how their concerns were structured. So that's in general how the one-on-one meetings had gone. And afterwards, when we received those messages from businesses, primarily they were concerned with the loss of parking again. But there was another property owner that is a landlord to some of those businesses over in the town center who had some concerns also about more broad items such as the number of the amount of traffic going through the area and crosswalks and stop signs and things of that nature. I guess a little bit more detailed questions rather than just specifically focusing on the parking spaces. So that's kind of the general idea that we received back from businesses and property owners in that area.
Thank you.
But again, for more detailed responses, we have the frequently asked questions attached at the bottom of this document. And we'll be sharing that on our social media and on our website. Correct me if I'm wrong, Deputy Director Barnes. I know that communications is your purview, but I believe that's what we talked about before.
She's nodding the affirmative.
Okay.
Councilmember Smith, do you want to go?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just again, as you know, similar every time we talk about this issue, I just want to thank staff for a overwhelmingly exhaustive process and engaging the public, our residents, people that visit our community, business owners. We started talking about this. I know it predates me on the council because it was one of the first, probably the first conversation I had with the town manager when I came on the council in 2021. Just the number of public engagement sessions, agenda items we've had in this meeting, individual meetings with subgroups over the months and years in this, it's just truly impressive. And I think that's how we get to the 10% designs that we have now that have received support from, the overwhelming majority of the community that have engaged with those. I think back to some of the sessions where we asked folks to put little dots on the posters of which designs they like, and the ones that we went with, I know, in the sessions I was at, those were the ones that had, I want to say like 75, 80% of the dots, but I don't want to put a metric on it without having done the count, but it wasn't close. And I think this is going to be a really great project that's going to improve our community. It's going to make our town center something that we can be even more proud of. It's going to attract more foot traffic to the businesses in town center. It's going to be a spot where folks can sit and enjoy and maybe spend more time than they intended to. So now they have to go get something to dinner in addition to picking up their bread and their coffee, or do some grocery shopping, or get some barbecue once they smell the smokers at 250 drifting over. I know I've been a victim of that a few times. I didn't intend to buy any barbecue, but then you start smelling it, and it's right there. So this is a great project. I'm super excited for our community, super excited for our town, for our businesses. Thank you to staff for everything you've done on this, and I look forward to making a motion to vote on the 10% designs in our next legislative session. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Then we'll go to the town manager afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just putting my hand up because my colleague was asking anyone who predated him on the council regarding this project, and it's coming to fruition. So, a little friendly reminder
that you've been around the block a few times. We appreciate that.
I brought this topic up at one of the very first public safety walks. I believe that was happening under Chief Dave Morris. A number of folks were there then, current Mayor Vernon Archer, then concerned resident Alan Thompson, just before he got elected on as a council member. Because this was right around the time with the development of the Riverdale Park Station, where you and my colleague from the fourth ward call home, regarding about how this was going to have, how this area was going to have to get redesigned in the future, and asking them what's going to be our strategy towards this to approach this and plan for this so that we're ready for it when the time comes. So yeah, this has been long on the planning, just like this renovation to Town Hall has been long in the planning. But that's a whole nother subject that we're not going to get into. So yeah, and if we're looking at passing this at some point, or if we feel comfortable doing so, okay, fine. I think springtime might be a little bit long, but you know, sometime before or around Christmas, if that's when we're getting to it, okay. But let's make sure that we've got a strong consensus on this from all the stakeholders involved in this area. And it's a much wider area than one would imagine, just that immediate area, though that area is important, but that with the community as well. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Town Manager Listician.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to ask a question of my staff person, Ryan. Of the input, and this is going to Councilmember Worsnop's question, of the input that we received with the second effort, I'll call it, to receive input from the town center businesses. Can you give us a sense of how much had been previously mentioned at outreach activities and then already incorporated into the designs and analyzed versus new concepts that we hadn't heard prior to that outreach?
So based on my loose understanding, I believe it's about a quarter to a third of the comments and the frequently asked questions, or the comments that we've received in general, were new in the most recent outreach. But I would ask if Rodney thinks that seems off, to please correct me on that.
I would agree with you. Yeah, I think some of the questions we've heard before and we just needed clarity on, but there were some new questions that we did our best to address in your document that you're talking about.
So just so I'm clear, so everything that was received that wasn't received previously, those questions are addressed in the frequently asked question document?
That's correct. The frequently asked question document addresses all of the questions we've received throughout the process so far.
And then my second comment, Mr. Mayor, is to the council. Staff really don't have a position on your timing. We believe that we went through a good process, a defendable process to gather information, to gather insight from residents, from businesses, from visitors. And that information has gotten us to the point where we are. If the council wants to send us back out and do more, we can. We're not sure how much would change. And because we don't want to discount the work that had already been done. The only other thing I would add to that is that this is a 10% design. And from a staff perspective, and Rodney, correct me if I'm wrong, but these are good concepts. And just by way of an example, we may find out at a later point, working with CSX, that something that we had an assumption that we'd be able to work out, we won't be able to. And we would have to say, well, we got to scrap that and go in a different direction. So for 10%, staff think that we went through a good process and we have a good product. But the decision on when the council moves forward, my only concern is the bond bill money. And I don't have that date on the tip of my fingers, but that does come with an expiration. It's a couple of years old now because we got that money from Park and Planning, who originally was awarded the bill, and then it was, or the bond, then it was transferred to us. So,
Thank you. Any public comments on this? You can feel free to take a seat. And if you are online and you have a comment, please raise your hand. You'll be recognized. Mayor Herman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Michael Herman. Yes, I appreciate still being called mayor. It's been a while since I've been the mayor, but in any event, I also, I am a resident of this community. I'm a business owner in this community, and I also happen to be the president of the Riverdale Park Business Association. Let me say this, that this process of us wanting to have improvements in the town center has been a long time in the making. Many times we had talked about how are we going to develop and improve our town center. And part of it was also to generate business into our town center, because some of us less than affectionately used to refer to it as the ghost town center, and no, it's no longer the case. With progress comes problems. With progress comes challenges. And it is great that we are now confronting the issue of how do we redesign the town center area to best accommodate the many multitude of needs that there are in that community. You received a letter today, and there's a reason that this letter had to be delayed to be crafted, because certain requests that were made of the town did not happen. And that's why we had to, as the business association, had to go in a different direction, because we couldn't get our request addressed. I don't want to start with an us versus them, because that's not what this is about. The town center and the revitalization of the town center is because of the investment of very, very significant dollars by people that are running businesses that have their dream, to make their dream a reality and to make that a success. You hear often about the town center market, a very successful project in our town center. Texas, the 250 Barbecue, an enormously successful business. But think of also some of the early adopters, people like the people that are running that hot yoga studio and some of the other businesses that have come into that community. These were early adopters and into that community and taking a chance in a place that other people said, why would you invest there? Nobody is coming there. And for a time, that was true. When we are now struck with the idea that we are now having greater success and we're having more people coming in, more pedestrians, now we have the trolley trail and people are coming through on bicycles. People are coming through to bypass some of the bad intersections that are adjacent to or part of our community. And some of it's just trying to avoid the construction traffic of the Purple Line. A lot of that has created some congestion in the town center. Some of it's good congestion, meaning that we want activity in the town center, and some of it's perhaps less than desirable, but it's here. Now the question is, what do we address it? I wanted to say that there was a letter that you all received today by email. It went to the mayor, it went to the entire council, and I also sent a copy to the town manager. We had requested months ago to have a separate meeting, and Councilmember Smith was present at that RPBA meeting. We requested to have a meeting with the RPBA and the businesses and to talk about this proposal with the town staff and with the design people. And Mr. Smith, Councilmember Smith said to me, don't worry, there are going to be meetings that are going to happen right away. And I was trying to get the meeting to be when I would be available as well, but it was not possible. I was going to be out of the country. And I think there was some reason that they decided they were going to have a different kind of meeting. I think a couple of businesses were involved in meetings at one point. Then, Mr. Mayor, as you know, we had approached you about an event that happened on August 14th at Natoli Place. And the reason it happened there was great concerns about this design that had been rolled out on August 4th, I believe it was. It's showing that there was going to be significant loss of parking on Natoli. Significant may not seem significant when you're talking 100 spaces in the town center, but when you're talking loss of 4 or 5 spaces, 6 or 7 spaces, in an area that has very few on Natoli, that was a very significant consequence. As a result, Mr. Mayor, you attended a meeting and we appreciated that. Then there was a follow-up email and letter to you on August 18th. And the genesis of that, on the request of that, was we as the business community would like to have a meeting with the businesses and the town, and also with the design people, so that we can discuss the latest iterations. There was no such meeting that occurred. What happened as a result of that was a desire by the town manager, staff, however it was, to go ahead and try to set up individual separate meetings with different businesses. I don't know what the reason was to do it that way as opposed to do it as a group, but regardless, the request didn't happen. And I heard something said by Mr. Shelton tonight, which actually is a little concerning to me, because he said that all of those meetings, they invited the businesses, these individual meetings, the 3 that apparently that occurred, they invited those individual businesses to also meet with the people from the design group, which is fascinating because one of those people who had one of those meetings is here tonight and will be speaking after me. And there was nobody from the Hunt group that was part of that meeting. So I'm a little confused because I don't want the members of the council to be guided by misinformation. I think good information and transparency is what should guide this process. Let me start by saying we are not trying to prevent anything from happening. We're trying to promote the best thing to occur at that location. I have asked repeatedly about deadlines that would be affecting public monies, and nobody has there's not been even a scintilla of any discussion about that until the town manager mentioned something earlier tonight. But I'm not been advised that there's any risk to any public monies that you have gotten from grants if this decision is pushed out 60 or 90 days or whatever the appropriate amount of time. There's no magic number in how many days it takes. It's a matter of what we do in the time that we allot for the delay or for the hiatus in taking action. As a result of not having that hybrid meeting that we had requested, we, the RPBA, got together and put out a notice to businesses to come to a meeting. They've had multiple meetings. More than 10 businesses that are affected directly in the town center participated in those meetings. And that is far more than the amount of, quote, business input than you have had as you're reflecting on all the different myriad of ways that you got information. As a result of those 2 long meetings, you have an 11-page letter that has been presented to you. I would ask you, if we want to do this in a transparent way, ask them in their public portal or whatever, let's put this letter out there for public consumption. We got nothing to hide. And when I say we're business owners, and many of us are also residents of the town. But let me explain what the alternative that has been proposed is for. What we said was we wanted to make comment. One or more members have tried to integrate alternative design and discussions into this for months. And nothing is ever reflected to show that there was any consideration given to any of that. But we as a group came up and said, can we develop a consensus that would both be an enhancement to public safety, that would also address pedestrian access, would also address the bicycle issues, and address the parking issues. And we came up with a design or an alternative way of analyzing this. Let me first speak to the east side of the train tracks, because I know the Natoli side. The alternative design that came out that had some additional parking that was more satisfying, and hopefully all of that additional parking can be created for those residents, that particularly those ones that are coming in late at night, so they don't have to walk distance to get to their homes in those multifamilies. But there was a raised concern that you're now creating a four-way stop at a parking lot entrance into the town center market. And there was also a question about, is this going to have an effect on traffic backup going back toward even up to the fire station, which of course is a great concern as a matter of public safety. I think that there's people in the traffic engineers who are better equipped to answer those questions than we are. But as it relates to, but it did create a solution to the Natoli Lafayette intersection. We can all agree that that X crossing is not the easiest way to traverse, and it is a kind of a challenging situation. Everybody agrees with that something needed to be done there. Now, let me talk mainly about the issue related to the west side of the train tracks. We have put together, after talking with and among all the businesses, there is a historic design for the town center. And the historic design for the town center, and I can show you photos that date back to the 1920s. Rhode Island Avenue continued through to what is where the connection is to where the trolley line is. So if you go Rhode Island Avenue, where, you know, right now, Rhode Island Avenue ends at Queensbury. And then there's that buffer, and then you have to enter to the parking lot area around what is Maryland Avenue extended, okay? I mean, I know that you have the designs, you've looked at them. The original entrance or access into that area was actually Rhode Island Avenue, and it went across Queensbury Road, and there's photos to show that. That is not only a historic design, but that actually is also very integral to why it makes sense to continue it that way and the way it was done historically. Because that creates parallel parking, adjacent parking to the businesses along that Rhode Island Avenue block that's north of Queensbury. It also then has the opportunity to create a separated parking spaces immediately to the east of that as you go closer to the train tracks. If you have the letter that we sent to you, it's actually drawn on the diagram. And we were doing this because we didn't have thousands of dollars to devote to this as the town did. So we did this inexpensively with the technical people that we have that are at our disposal. One of the advantages of the proposal that we've put forth, it's really a modification of, I think, the third design. I think that was of the earlier iterations before they went to what they referred to as the 10% choice. In that design, what they've done is we've created that basically the trolley trail continues almost in a straight line from the point where it enters Queensbury Road all the way to the point where it comes back up past the parking lot onto the trolley trail. The advantage of that is when you have bicyclists who are driving at any rate of speed and you have them doing these very wide jogs, that's a dangerous situation. It's dangerous for pedestrians, it's dangerous for traffic, and it's dangerous for the bicyclists. This process that we've proposed is actually a straighter line. It's actually safer for bicyclists. Secondly, by creating that just to the west of just to the east of Rhode Island Avenue, then you can have Rhode Island Avenue continuing. And then when you get past the stores, that's when it turns and curves so that the people can get onto Maryland Avenue. It is one of the designs or similar to one of the designs that was being proposed. The other advantage of this is that what we've put in place is what we've called, just affectionately for purposes of just identification on a diagram, a thing called Train Square. It basically is a flexible space that is the main parking lot for that whole area. And that would be of a different character, maybe either colored brick or different kind of raised issue. It creates more of what, if you've been in Europe, a piazza. If you've seen a piazza, basically it's an area that can flex. It can be seating for something like an event, a special event. It could also be a parking lot. And that's what that space should be. When you have that, you're not going to have the confusion that people are going to have about crossing over and then town center and the town market, people going through and driving through the traffic and driving through the people. That whole town's Train Square can be exactly where you have the farmer's market. And it can be cordoned off with the amount of space that is needed, as shown in some of the sub-diagrams. The reason that this is also a preferred design is it does something very important for public safety, which was addressed during the course of the analysis that was being done. It is taking a dangerous intersection and placing it further from the train tracks. In other words, the terminus from the parking lot or the point of ingress or egress is roughly 50 to 60 feet further away from the train track than it was before. This is a much more safe design and less likely to have situations where cars are hitting trains or people getting caught in the grid. All I'm saying to you, when you relook at this, there's a reason why this design or an alternative like this makes more sense. Let me take a moment to dispel the myth of what we call the 10% design. Everybody keeps talking about it's only a 10% design, it's only a 10% design. If any of you have been involved in any kind of elaborate projects before, a 10% design really means this is the design that you want to do, and now you're going to procure all the services around it to effectuate the 10% design. What it really means often is you're maybe at the 10% cost phase, because 90% of it's going to go into the design and construction. So when you do a 10% design, you are not saying this is such a small percentage. What you're really saying is, this is what we're going to do. We'll tweak it, we'll farm it out, but we're not going to alter it or substantially change the design or we're going to redevelop it. I think it's very important when you look at what is being proposed here. This has not been thought out over in some sort of secretive way, and it wasn't done overnight. This was being thought of over months of discussions between people about thinking, what is a better way to do this so that we can accomplish the multiple objectives of minimizing the parking loss, accommodating our very successful farmers market, which this does. It does not create a plaza of inaccessible area that would be used for some other purpose. Part of it is the farmer's market, but part would still be spilling out into the parking lot. You actually were going to have a design where the bike trail was going to bisect through the middle of the town, through the market on market days, which made me say, my God, you really do want a pedestrian to get hit by a bicyclist. All I can say is that we thought this through, and it was carefully thought of in a ways to say, how do we minimize some of these other impacts? This does not address some of the bigger picture issues of what we'll call the periphery problems, the traffic periphery problems that everybody's been talking about, the cut through traffic, all the other things, the congestion that's been creating into the town center from other external forces. This is more about just directing the flow inside the town center area, assuming that people are coming here. Let us be careful when we move forward with this project that we don't kill the goose that laid the golden egg. We in the town center and the town, and have seen through this to really a wonderful experience of seeing the town center evolve. And then we have Riverdale Park Station, another enormously successful and much larger development to our north. These two are anchoring some of the really important economic development that's happening in and around our community. If you make the businesses suffer by having people less accommodating to park there, what's going to happen is people will choose to vote with their feet, and they will vote to go somewhere else. And if they can't park, if they can't access, if they have to walk 100 feet to get to a store that they want to just jump in and jump out, you're just going to make it harder and harder, because I can park at Whole Foods closer to the door than I might be able to park closer to the doors to, say, CC's Market or to Riviera Tapas. That's a problem. There are many other points in our plan and why we're saying there are benefits to this that have not been considered. We would ask you to reconsider some of these, and we are asking for the 30 to 90-day hiatus to recommit this to the folks. Ask the design people to attack it, explain why it's such a bad idea, to say why this doesn't make the most sense. But more importantly, ask why you want to destroy something that has been a victim, it will become a victim of our own success. And then some people on the town council and the mayor will scratch their heads 5-10 years from now and say, why did we do that? That was not the smartest way to approach this thing. And that's what we're trying to avoid, to make sure that we don't say, let's be penny wise, pound foolish. Let's make a rush to judgment and make a decision that doesn't make sense for the long term. I know that I've gone on a long time, but we are asking the mayor and council to not vote on this next week. We are asking you to put this out for your people to analyze. We are still requesting that meeting with the businesses and the affected businesses and your design people, which did not happen. Even though it's been represented tonight that it was available, it never did occur. We would ask you to look at it in a holistic way and think about all the different interests that we're trying to protect. I know there are other people that want to speak. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about the letter.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the letter. I didn't get to read the entire thing, but I did. We do have copies of sort of pulled up here. I appreciate the passion. I think that if we want to be fair, we should be fair how we talk about this, right? I think there are elements in your design that I would say are more than 10%. The Piazza idea makes a lot of sense. The town center square that's been talked about, I see very little differences, and actually the two plans are sort of suggested. The question that I have for Mr. Tissue, if you're still around and available, is I think there are the fundamental difference between, I think, where this plan, I think where we are at that we need to sort of decide is the plan of the alignment of Queensbury to be like a true sort of, cross intersection or not. It's sort of one of those, once we make that decision, it'll be hard to go back on it. The materials that are used for the plaza, the direct alignment in terms of the bike path, I think your plan has it going straight. There's probably some light poles and stuff that we might have to think about what that looks like. And so whether it's a curved or a straight line that kind of curves, those are detailed design items that will come up. And so I think the big thing is it a cross or is it sort of the current entrance that it is now? And then two, I think the other is more around in terms of some of the traffic. As a traffic engineer, some of the concerns around what does this mean for backing up and crossing the train, CSX line, right? Which I believe, Mr. Tissue, both were things that were considered. And so from your professional opinion, can you speak to, I guess, the first point of some of the concerns of traffic buildup on the CSX line, and then the second on the, why your recommendation was not to sort of realign the Queensbury into a true cross intersection?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. I think it boils down to the fact that if you do move Maryland Avenue, Rhode Island Avenue has various names. If you move it 50 or 60 feet, uh, as Mike said, you still cannot put in a stop sign for westbound traffic because it's such a short distance between there and the railroad. We did do it on the other side where we have about 130, 140 feet from the railroad to the proposed four-way stop with very little conflicting traffic so that we feel like that movement will keep moving freely. But on this side of the tracks, we're just simply too close. So it really came down to, what's the benefit then of moving it that 50 feet and having it directly across from Rhode Island? There's probably some marginal benefit, but then I think you have to look at the other factors of having the street right directly in front of the businesses, other things like that, that we just kind of weighed that and thought there's just not enough traffic benefit to do it that way. But it certainly was an option we studied. It was basically our option 3 and 3A.
And when you said the other, just for clarification, the current proposed sort of four-way stop sign would be in front of Town Center Market's parking garage or parking lot. And you're saying that putting a four-way stop pretty much at a new sort of cross intersection of Rhode Island Avenue and Queensbury, that is where you have concern that any traffic that is crossing westward towards Baltimore Avenue may back up and cross into the tracks.
Right. You can't, in my opinion, you cannot put a westbound stop sign on Queensbury at the relocated intersection.
And then just, Michael, in terms of in your design, with basically the road will go kind of straight in front of the businesses and then curve eventually. How would people get to the parking?
So there's entrances that would come down from either you would have like bollards or whatever you want to do to demarcate. You'd have Rhode Island Avenue going across just the way it is. Then the bike path is coming up, as you can know, it's sort of bisecting that a little bit on a diagonal line. As the Rhode Island Avenue comes through across the bike path, there'll be maybe 1 or 2 entrances into the parking, the bigger parking lot, we'll call the piazza, if you will. And that's where you would have those entrances basically coming in. So you'd have 1 or 2 entrances. And then I think the design also shows that one could also come in from right before Maryland Avenue does the curve into heading up to Rhode Island Avenue. And we were looking at, we were also looking at the size of the curve because, there is size restrictions in terms of necessity for larger vehicles to be able to make that. We understand that those size vehicles can make that turn because you have the configuration going differently also. But in any event, that would be the 2 entrances. I mean, it's in the design. It's something that we would be happy to discuss with. I'm very happy to discuss with your design team, as we wanted to do all along, because I think that was where we can, sort of think through this a little bit clearly with people who are maybe better design people than I am. I'm a lawyer. This is not what I do for a living. But there are other people that have more experience than I do that looked at this from a more technical standpoint.
Thank you.
But I think they want to comment as well.
No problem. Any other public comments?
Keep you here all night. Hi, my name is Bruce Wernick. I think a lot of people know me here. I live right up the street. I own some frontage at the town center. And, I've been through this process many times. I'm a systems engineer, been all over the world, built all kinds of systems. Don't want to bore you with the details. But the point I'm trying to make is I understand very well what's going on here. There's a lot of emotional attachment to the current plan. You guys have spent a lot of time on it. You don't want to let it go. The points I want to make to you is I want you all to think about something. Okay, when you go to the grocery store, what grocery store or shopping plaza in the area has a big plaza in the middle of it? Anybody? I mean, what I'm trying to establish here is when you do things, when I do things, I look at how other people do them. I say, okay, how did Whole Foods do it? Or how does Prince George's Plaza do it? Or whoever. The people that are doing this kind of work are very, very, very experienced at this. And their motivation is number one, convenience, and number two, ease of access. So when I looked at this design, being in my background, I started comparing it with all the other designs that, parking lots in the area. I walk around, I look at, and this is nothing like any of the other parking areas. I'm focusing on town center, mind you. And my biggest concern is, as you know, is parking and ease of access. Imagine you're a mother with children and it's raining like hell and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to go over to Ceci's, but you can't get to it because there's the plaza there or whatever, there's obstructions. And so you're going to look at this going, the hell with this. I'm going up to Whole Foods or I'm going to Yes Market or whatever. And this is, all of us do this. This is not just me, but every single one of us is very, very convenience oriented. If you think about your cell phone, you pick up your cell phone, boom, you press a few buttons and wham, you got something from Amazon in 24 hours. That's the precedent that's been set. That's our psychology. So when we go to a grocery store or we go anywhere, all this is going on in the background. You're thinking, this is taking too long. I don't want to have to walk so far. I don't want to have to be inconvenienced. Why? Because of all this unbelievable convenience we have at our disposal. So the point I'm trying to make is, as Mike pointed out, historically, the town center I've been here for 40 years. The town center was vacant for probably a good 20 years. Basically a hulk. There was nothing there. There might have been one business now and then, and it's turned around. It's actually gotten quite nice over there, and I think we can all agree on that. And so the point I'm trying to make is access and convenience, easy access and convenience. That's job one at the town center. And I don't care how you do it. It's not about green spaces. It's not about plazas. It's about what Whole Foods is doing, what Prince George's Plaza is doing, what the Bellway Plaza is doing, because when we go there, we don't realize, but this precedent is affecting us. We have this expectation level because this is what happens. We go there, we drive, we park, boom, we're right in the building. We don't have to walk over plazas or, go around, obstructions or anything. This is the convenience that we've come to expect. And so what I'm asking you folks to do is when you look at your plan, think about this. Think about how is this convenient for a consumer? Because if I'm, like say I'm a guy driving down the street and I'm just bopping along and going through town. I say, hey, look, there's a restaurant over there. I'm going to go over. And then all of a sudden, look, there's no parking. I'm not going there. It's too much trouble. A lot of the business, the traffic that we get into the town center is cut through traffic, pass through traffic. Like for example, the town center beer garden, the town center market. You're driving along and you've never been there before. And you see, hey, look at all these people over there. I'm going to go over. But then when you look at if you don't have a place to park, you say, well, man, it's just too much trouble. I'm not going to walk a block and a half to get there. I'm just going to go home. So this is the kind of thoughts that go through my head. And I threw a plan out there. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it. That's not necessarily the plan, but my focus was access and convenience. And I understand the green space and all that other stuff. But what really matters is if there isn't successful businesses in the town center, nobody's going to come here. And I have direct hands-on experience with that situation for a couple of decades at least. There was nothing there. It was just a rundown hulk. So I'm trying to make a point here. There's a lot of emotion involved here. I've been through this 100 times, but you have to look at it like put on the blinders and say, okay, what are we trying to do? Make it easier for the customers to access the businesses and get in and out of there. It's that simple. And if you deviate from that, there's going to be a price to pay. So I have nothing more to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments. I think it's Mr. Tissue. Can you give us the percentage from the of lost parking spots from the current plan right now from
round numbers, I thought it was 30. But I mean, I'd have to.
It's
I just walked through them and counted them. I didn't really do accurate count.
Can you give us the number, since there's some confusion in the room in terms of like what the exact number is, Mr. Tissue?
So the net loss is 15. There's 23 lost, but then we found a way to add 8 more. And then if you recall, if we follow through with the making Rhode Island Avenue one way, at least 9 more spaces could be gained. So you're down to a net loss within, 100 feet of there of about 6 spaces.
And then and so that's helpful to know. And then again, the point about in the traffic study that was done, I believe you did it on multiple days and not just one day,
2 days. That's correct.
2 different days.
Mhm.
And do you have offhand the percentage of parking for cars that were there for longer than 5 hours or so?
I do, and that is looks like it's about 20% maybe.
At any point in time in the traffic study, was the parking lot 100% full?
No.
Well, I think your study is very limited. Statistically, 2 days is insignificant. I've been there. I live there. I live a block away. I'm down there. We just took a bunch of pictures on Wednesday and I circulated them where the parking lot was probably 80 to 85% full in the middle of the day Wednesday. There's a lot of commuters that go through there. And I think a 2-day analysis is, you should have 2 weeks of analysis at various times. You can't assess a parking situation with 2 days. I think I contest that very assumption because, I've been there, I live there, I see it every day. I see what's going on down there and 20%, it's rare that parking lot is 20% occupied.
No, it wasn't 20% occupied. It's 20% of people who were parking there were longer than 5 hours. Or
Long-term
okay.
parkers, correct.
Long-term parkers. You even mentioned the commuters as well. I think some of the, and I know, Mr. Garopolos, I see your hand raised, and I'll acknowledge you in a second. I know one of the concerns is, so I appreciate the feedback, and I sometimes find myself closing my eyes and thinking about if the design had 100% elimination of parking, would the comments sound the same? And I think they would sound the same. This idea of it's about how do we have convenience for people. It's not about green spaces. It's about making it more convenient for people to be able to drive up and visit some of these spaces. But when I look at the designs, even the one that Mr. Herman sort of shared and the one that is sort of proposed, there is still ample amounts of parking. Now, there are comments and questions about how do we limit the parking for commuters so they're not parking there and then taking the train, or parking there and getting on the trolley train or trolley trail and going wherever they are. Metered parking, those are opportunities for us to sort of think about, but it is not the full elimination of all parking. But I hear the concern about, how do we make it, clear for people to be able to notice and see, whether from a distance or driving by, that this, business is open and people are accessible to be able to go and sort of service them.
Well, maybe I don't understand. Is the plaza you're going to be able to park on the plaza? Is that going to happen? Because I thought that was going to be segregated from the parking area. And
Yes.
if that's segregated, if you're going to not be able to allow to park on the plaza, there's probably 10 or 20 parking spaces that plaza alone will consume.
It's 15. It's 15. So that's what he was saying. Like, so there are 15 spots there, and that's not encompassing the other spots that would be able to be created. And so to that point, but I know we had a hand up, and I don't want to dominate the time. Mr. Garopolos, are you still there? You still want to?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks, Mayor. And thanks to everyone who has taken so much time and effort to weigh in on this whole thing. So as I sit here and listen, clearly everyone involved has their own little agenda within the bigger picture of making things safer. To echo, a lot of what the businesses, accessibility, convenience, parking are all paramount. My brother and I have taken the time to go to public meetings, to meet privately with the town and Rodney, and we're super appreciative of the time. When that other meeting took place at Natoli on August 14th, I was unavailable, so I'm not quite sure. And Mike, and Bruce, I know you guys have done a whole lot of time and effort on the business side of things, but I was a little disappointed to hear the critique about the four-way stop at our store. I will go a little Pete Sparopoulos on this, and Town Center Market, we went at it alone for a long time. And we were kind of at the front side of this whole thing and believed in what could happen in and around our area. But the first guy down the road, Mike Franklin, I think was the one that really truly believed in it all. And we came along a little after. We've gone through great lengths to, kind of, make sure that we use what's best at our disposal to what properties my family owns. And in other words, I've said in other meetings, there's a gravel parking lot in between 250 building and our building that my father used to rent out to a local construction company. And when things got really jammed up, we started to get really busy. My brother and I went to my dad and said, "Hey, Dad, we really need to rent that parking lot because we need more parking space, mainly for our employees, and sometimes delivery trucks can tuck away in there." I make the joke, for those that know my dad, the rent for the construction company was $1,000 a month. For me and my brother, it's $1,100 a month. But my point is that if Lafayette Avenue is closed to people coming over the tracks and unable to turn left, and all the traffic now goes down in front of our parking lot entrance to turn left onto Natoli, talk about accessibility and convenience. Nobody will be able to get in and out of our parking lot. And that would be devastating. And, Mike, I know you and I didn't speak, and Bruce, we really haven't talked about it, but my brother and I have really followed the guidelines that, have been presented to us by the town. And we thought we were doing what was right. And my brother and I have made it very clear that four-way stop is imperative to the accessibility and convenience of our customers. I don't know how else, this thing could work for us. So again, this is very challenging, and the greater goal, I understand, we all have that collective goal of making things better and safer. And we acknowledge that it needs to happen. But I also want to point out that within that greater goal, every single person that's on this meeting and in this call has their own private little agenda. I have to say selfishly that four-way stop is a very big deal to Town Center Market. And I certainly, don't want to see that to be tabled. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Rodney, are you still with us?
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure that there's clarity here because I got confused a little bit there. The proposal as it stands for the four-way at Natoli and Queensbury, there is a four-way stop that's proposed there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And from a traffic design standpoint, there's no consideration to remove that.
No.
And
we're
the
comfortable with
reference earlier to the four-way that would not work is what you're talking about on the west side of the tracks, not on the east side of the tracks.
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that Town Center Market folks have that clear. And Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make one other comment. So as it relates to town staff having any emotion in this, we don't. We just designed a process, and we think it's a good process. And whatever the council decides, is what the council decides in terms of timing. The only concern I have is I'm going to check on that bond bill in terms of timing. And in response to Mayor Herman, it's my understanding that for the virtual meetings, we did have the design team on those meetings, but not for the in-person meeting, because one of the three businesses was a in-person meeting, and the design team wasn't able to be there for that. So I think that answers that question.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
If I may.
Sure.
This is an elaboration or kind of for the record, Mike Arnold. I am a preservation and architecture design consultant. I have my business now in University Park, but was in Riverdale Park and owned with my partners, the small office building at 6220 Rhode Island Avenue. Used to be Taylor Wells Antique Shop. People know it also for Aunt Emily and her doll repairs. My history with Riverdale Park goes back many years. I came to University of Maryland as a student, bought my first house in Riverdale, and I have not left Prince George's County since 1980. So I feel like I'm almost accepted by the local community as an old timer. So that's back history. I again want to thank you all for taking all this time to continue to re-review this process. Carrying out this comprehensive design project is way past due, but there is no urgency or immediacy to solving the problem if we're short-sighted on the bigger issues. And so, with that in mind, with the end in mind, I just want to make it clear, and I think it reinforces what Michael presented, is that we are not in favor, I am certainly not in favor of the alternative 2, which has been proposed for the west side of this project, or the town square side, or the railroad square side. You can call it many things. While it has many transportation merits to it, it's significantly lacking in good town design. And that's my primary concern here. What they solve in transportation issues today may hold water today, but they'll be long gone 20 years from now. And I want to make sure that this is a good place 20 years from now. So what I am asking is not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. What I am interested in is working with this transportation design team on looking at their alternative 3, which is very close, if you look at the diagrams I just gave you, to this kind of very simplified diagram I've been providing to the design team since the first day we had the kickoff meeting, which I believe was on January 4th, but I'm not sure, at Riverdale Park Elementary School. And Rodney Tissue took a photograph of a drawing I gave him at that time, which has been developed over the subsequent 9 months. And I have provided updates to that diagram, that one of those versions which you have in front of you now. And that really is also the basis of discussion I had with the Riverdale Park Business Association on many occasions, and what I'm providing to you once again here today. While there are a lot of merits to the alternative 3, there are a lot of things that are lacking from it as well. It's a good transportation diagram, but it misses a number of points, and I just wanted to review those. You can also deduce from that, I think, that many of the things that I think are positives of tweaking this alternate 3 that was proposed are missing in alternate 2. And so just quickly, the bullet points are there. There are just 7 of them. One is paramount is flexibility, making sure that this pedestrian area is not just a pedestrian area. This space needs parking. We know that. We know that the farmer's market occupies the entire parking lot right now, 20% of the business year, 55 days, 52 days a week. So 20% of the business days of the year, businesses cannot receive direct access, to customers because you have to get through the Maginot Line of the farmer's market. So that's a 20% deficit for my tenants and the rental possibilities of our building. Okay, so that really follows on two, which is business access. Using alternative 3 then allows us that business access 24/7, 365 in a way that people recognize, which is driving their car to parallel parking to get out and do some shopping in a small business, which is almost invariably all short-term parking. It's not long-term. Then the next bullet, falling on top of that is that we want to create great shopping experiences. The current shopping experience is not great. What we have is a bad street edge that has been evolved as a result of building a parking lot out of this railroad square 40 years ago. And we're living with that and we limp along with it. We're doing, we do a very creative job with that. What needs to happen here is we need to make a good street edge there where those businesses on the west side of the square are. And we only have to look at the El Mutzi designs to know that. All you have to do is go over to Riverdale Park Station and sit at Denizens, and you'll know exactly the kind of streetscape the town needs to create for the businesses to thrive. The town needs to create that. The businesses don't need to make that. It's in the public way. And we have all the examples we need. We don't need to do peer reviews anywhere else, in my opinion. Fourth issue is traffic safety. You create traffic safety, first of all, by this four-way intersection. It's predictable. We know four-way intersections. The bizarre double T intersection we have right now creates confusion. The only people that have a straight through kind of are the bicycles, but they even have to make a jog because they're coming out on Maryland Avenue and then turning and going to the bike trip. So there's a lot of confusion. I've witnessed a lot of confusion of people crossing the railroad tracks, pedestrians, vehicles being stopped, large vehicles being stopped on the tracks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We've all been there. We've all seen that. So moving that intersection, even without the stop sign, is going to improve the safety of that situation. The other thing that's on my highlights here is being pedestrian friendly. And the way you do that is by layering the space. Pedestrians are separated from bicycles, are separated from vehicles. And you do that as much as you possibly can. And then you create intersections where they can interact. So the idea of putting a pedestrian walkway that is storefront shoppers right along with the bicycle path, as is drawn in some of those diagrams, is really problematic because that means you have high-speed bicycle commuters, high speed in air quotes, they're bicyclists, right next to pedestrians who are looking in windows and then turning around, and they could be right in the pedestrian path. So that's a problem. They created that situation as long as what Michael pointed out, which was turning this pedestrian path in between the proposed location where the farmer's market might go all the time. So these are real problems of the other designs that could be solved with 3. 3 comes very close to detailing that issue, which is making the trolley trail happen on its historic course. That is, bicycles go up and down the trolley line. It's demarcated by the power lines. Nothing has moved since it was all built almost 125 years ago. So separating these things, creating good user experience is very important, specifically for pedestrians. The other thing, again, as is implicit in this, is the trail network. We need to make the trail network a throughway. That is what's predicted. The trolley trail starts in Washington, D.C. on Rhode Island Avenue, and it is a straight line all the way to Beltsville, except for where we are right now, today. Right now, Town Square, you cross Queensbury, then you go on Maryland Avenue, and then you go down a little bit with the cars in a street with some chyrons painted on the ground to say this is where bikes go, and then you make a left turn, and then you make a right turn, and you're back on the path. It is crazy, okay? And because of that, the bicycle traffic is crazy. It makes no sense. So keeping a clear path and then controlling that path, just like you control vehicular traffic with speed bumps and stop signs and warning signs, do the same thing with bicycle path. Cyclists are used to this. Anybody who's been in a major urban area knows this. You do double dips, you do speed tables, you do the same thing with bicycles that you do with automobiles. It's just at a slightly different scale. So that all are technical details that certainly get worked out after a 10% design, okay? And then finally is history. As a member of the Prince George's Heritage Foundation, which promotes preservation of historic sites in Prince George's County, as a member of El Mutzi, as a member of the preservation community, the town of Riverdale Park is recognized, this federal district, that is Riverdale Park Historic District, as an important public resource that we collectively are bound to be good stewards of. And by creating this kind of just sheer ignorance of the historic district, it is not mentioned in not one single document that the transportation engineers put together. Never recognized, as was El Mutzi, never recognized. These are our guardians of our town center, the town center that we care about and we value. We talk about the Railroad Square as an important artifact, important part of our history, and yet we're willing to kind of just ignore that part of the history within the solution of this transportation diagram. And I'd submit that that's an oversight that can easily be rectified. Again, I think if we look back, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, if we look at Scheme 3 and look at some of the suggestions we made, that I think we have a path forward without having to do a major redesign, but it is going to take some cooperation and discussion. Again, I appreciate how much work this takes, and it's well worth all of the work and even more. Okay, and I'm here as a member of the community with some knowledge in how these processes work to assist the town in making this happen so that we all have a really great outcome that we can all be happy with when I'm old and gray and in my wheelchair. Thank you for your time.
Oh, bless you. I admit that I am coming in, again, Heather from Ward 1, I'm coming into this process late. I haven't been able to engage it in the same way that others in the room have. I think Mr. Spiropoulos was the purveyor of truth earlier to say everybody who's commented and will comment has their own agenda. I have mine, which is I really don't want to get hit and killed in town center as we're trying to figure it out. To me, the 10% design is the permission structure to move forward and have more conversations. I agree, like probably CSX is going to have a lot of opinions about this and a lot of it's going to change. I really want to encourage the council to keep moving forward with the process. We don't need to delay it anymore. Undoubtedly, the design that we're putting forward is going to change. And so let's move the conversation forward, figure out what those hitches are, where we can improve it, but let's move forward. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll be very quick also. It's quite past my bedtime. Just to add a couple of thoughts to my earlier comments that I made. I respectfully disagree with some of the priorities of the others that have spoken here tonight, though I understand we are coming with different priorities. Ultimately, I would just ask that the council not throw out the numerous comments, resident input, other credentialed individuals in our industry who have provided comments on this, who serve on town committees. I serve on one myself, other neighbors here that do as well. And those comments are what got us to this point, including the stakeholders that are in this room and have a lot to say tonight. And if a new design is going to be considered, then I would ask that residents get fair input on that process as well if this is to be delayed.
Thank you. All right.
Which I thought it may be helpful. This is a very complex issue. I think we can all agree on that. And there's a million opinions, but you might want to consider an incremental approach where, okay, you have a long-term plan, but you increment it incrementally in terms of what's the safest thing to do first. And then you try it out and then you gradually move your way. Usually the Corps does this all the time. What they do is they start off with a 10% plan and then they'll come up to maybe a 90 and then they start rolling it out. And then as they're going, the plan changes. But this happens all the time. This is normal, but it's constantly changing as you're rolling out the plan. You put it out bit by bit by bit, and then if you come upon something that you didn't think about, you can make changes, and then make improvements, etc. So I think you may want to think about that approach because that way, you're not going all in, and then all of a sudden, oh, we didn't think of that. So anyway, that's the end of my comments.
Thank you. All right. I think we're good with this topic. It is almost 10:30, which is a good maybe 3 hours and 15 minutes because we had a slow start making sure everything worked. In the interest of time, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. I think before I do though we didn't touch on it, some of the other items that we haven't come across that I think it'll be important for folks to know. Obviously, the stop sign monitoring systems is something that it's going to be a public hearing on October 6th. If you've got thoughts and opinions on it, please come out and voice your opinions. We'll be right back here. Bring your friends and bring your thoughts and share that. The council is reviewing its sort of rules and procedure. It's something that Council Member Lingua sort of pointed out that traditionally we've sort of just always adopted Robert's rules. And so we will adopt Robert's rules formally, but it's something that we actively need to think about. What does our council's rules and procedure look like? Especially since, 10 years ago, the last time I think it was adopted, there wasn't a such thing as a hybrid meeting. We didn't have microphones. We didn't have, all the stuff that we're doing right now, right? We're figuring out in real time. And so what does it mean to sort of memorialize it, since you've been using that word, implement it so that it's a known thing? So we will be working on that. I encourage everyone on the council, everyone in the public, if you've got particular opinions on what that should look like. Almost every jurisdiction or municipality surrounding us has something, a document rating that says, this is what we do, this is what we stand for, this is what it means to be on this council. And it also has technical things of like, this is how long meetings should be. Should it be 3.5 hours? Like, this is how long you should be able to comment on things. These are the type of things you want to comment on things. So it's both instruction, but it's also sort of our vision sort of written down and explained so that when I was a new council member, there was nothing I could point to say, this is what it means to be a council member. And I don't want that to happen again. And so I think it's really important. So if you've got thoughts, please bring that with you. The town flag design essentially is we have a new seal, which is beautiful. Appreciate that. We therefore need to update a bunch of things as a result of that. And town flag is something, best practice is to not just put your town seal on a flag, that there are rules to it. It's what's tough for us is DC is the hallmark that everyone, holds up, and it's right next door. And it's something that the minute you see it, even if it's really small, you understand where it is. And so I know the former Mayor Thompson put some thoughts together, so we can definitely talk about that. I know that town staff also want to talk about an electric utility vehicle that they wanted to purchase, and we'll speak about that maybe in a future session. And from a council perspective, everything that we talked about right now, to bring it sort of full circle, we have a legislative dinner with our state senator and our state delegates that happens always the first Tuesday after Thanksgiving. There's a dinner and we sort of come together and think about what are the priorities that they should do for the next legislative session. So as council members, we're all, I think, have homework to basically think about what should be prioritized in that. I know a lot of the things we talked about today will be in that conversation, but if there's anything else, let us know. Please reach out. We're trying to formalize what our thoughts are so that we can have a coherent story for Riverdale Park. You'd be surprised how many people just say what their complaints are, and there are not enough opportunities to inject what we should do and not just what's broken. So think about both, but if you can only think about just what's broken, that's fine too. That's helpful as well. Last thing, town manager report, anything that we need to cover before that's time sensitive?
The only thing that's time sensitive is on October 4th is a movie night for Hispanic Heritage Month, and it's at Riversdale. Information is on our website, and the movie is Vivo. That's
Thank
it.
you. That is a great thing, a great note to end on. I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for joining. I know we went extra innings, and both main topics that we covered today were extremely important. One for the legacy of what our town looks like for the next 20, 30, 50 years in terms of how our town center is, formed. And the other is something that is a burning issue that is keeping us all up at night. And so both are equally important for different reasons. And I think it's important that we took the time to talk about that today. Thank you all for coming, and hopefully see you again in meetings like this and making this space very vibrant moving forward. Meeting adjourned.